Good afternoon. Dear colleagues and stakeholders, Ambassador Locale and myself, we are very pleased to welcome you to the second session of virtual consultation on the WSIS+20 review process. As noted yesterday, these consultations follow the release of the zero draft of the outcome document. We have received more than 90 written inputs from across all stakeholder groups, which have been published on the WSIS+20 website. We would like to thank all contributors for the engagement and their valuable feedback. Today's session continues our collective reflection on the zero draft's key themes and proposals. Your inputs will inform the preparation of a revised draft ahead of the December high-level meeting. I now invite my co-facilitator, Ambassador Locale, to share his opening remarks. Ambassador Locale.
Thank you, Ambassador. I echo your appreciation to all participants joining us today. This session complements yesterday's discussion, enabling broader participation across time zones. As before, we encourage all participants to make concise and focused interventions on the themes reflected in the zero draft. I now kindly ask the Secretariat to remind us of the rules of procedure. Dennis, please.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and when their turn comes, we will move them to the panelists. We also ask all the speakers to respect the 3 minutes time. There will be a timer on the screen. And if your name is not in the speaking list, and if you would like to speak, please raise your hand at the end, and the Secretariat will give the floor to you. Over to you, Excellencies.
Thank you, Dennis, for this information you have shared with us for the well-going of this session. Now, before we open the floor for the participants, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of Mr. Peter Major, who played leading roles in the Commission on Science and Technology for Development, among others serving as chair of the CSCD Working Group on Data Governance and in the Internet Governance Forum, IGF. In honor of Mr. Peter Major's memory, let us observe a minute of silence. I thank you for observing together with us on the memory of Peter's. May his soul rest in peace. Now we would like to open the speaking list, and we start by clusters, by themes that we have decided to continue today, starting with the theme on bridging digital divides and capacity development. I would like to invite now to take the floor Tinuade Oguntui from Information Connectivity Solutions Limited. Tinuade, the floor is yours. It's my understanding that Tinuade is not present today. May I call on Andy Richardson from Inter-Parliamentary Union?
I am actually present, but I was not elevated to speaker.
Andy, are you online?
We have the first speaker. We have the first
speaker, Tinuade. But I mean, can we hear you, Tinuade? Can you speak?
Yes.
Do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I was just being elevated to a panelist.
But we can hear you. You can continue. And then the Secretariat can provide maybe to help you with the video, because we hear you, and
yes,
for
I
the
can
sake
hear
of the
you
time,
now.
it's better than you continue with your remarks.
Yes, thank you very much. Good day, everyone. My name is Tinuade Oguntui, and I'm speaking from Nigeria. And today I'm looking at bridging digital divide and capacity development. Thank you for the privilege of coming on to this informal session to share and lend my voice. From the zero draft, we have seen remarkable progress. Yes, over 95% has been seen, but there is still some concern in this area because beneath the surface, the divide still persists. We have variance in the high-income countries where we have about 93% that are online, while the low-income countries still about 26.5. Rural areas, unfortunately, still lag behind, while the urbans are still going further. We also see from the zero draft, based on the statistics, that gender gaps remain. While I think to a larger extent, I am impressed that at least it's close because we have 65 of women using the internet compared to 70, which of course is some form of advancement, but we know that more can be done, especially when it comes to empowering the marginalized. Just like I doubled also act, even as I work in information connectivity solutions at Tino Adeni Tech Foundation, we try to help the marginalized, especially girls and women. I remember the last time when we were looking at the element paper, I had mentioned categorically about the capacity development, that we need to sway from emphasis on only technical to other areas of capacity building, which is like critical thinking, problem solving. We rightly identified the lack of capacity as a major barrier, and this calls for investment in both human digital literacy and, of course, lifelong learning, especially for developing countries like Africa, where I am from. It is indeed a strong foundation. The focus on empowering local experts and creating content reflecting local realities, I'm glad this is reflecting because it was also mentioned. However, the strategy still feels vague. It's not showing clearly what the strategies are. And there is also little mention of how the youth will lead this innovation or how success will be measured in the long run. While we will talk a lot about technical, let's just move also into other ethical use of technology and how we can apply as it matches our pain point. The intentions, of course, are solid and execution needs to be sharper and clarity stronger for better accountability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tinuade, for your contribution. I now would like to invite Andy Richardson from Interparliamentary Union. Andy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. On behalf of the Interparliamentary Union, the global organization of national parliaments, let me begin with what unites us all, the transformative potential of digital technologies. We need to harness this power to support economic development, create new jobs, extend healthcare and education, and combat climate change. We need to ensure these benefits are widely distributed. And parliaments see this potential clearly, but they also see the risks, and they're reminded of them every day by the people they represent. In global forums, we often discuss digital transformation's promise. In parliaments, elected representatives hear about its challenges. The worker worried about automation, the parent concerned about their child's online safety, the elderly person struggling with services that have gone digital. And so parliaments exist in both realities simultaneously. And this dual perspective is precisely why they must be more centrally engaged in WSIS. The IPU and Parliament strongly support the multi-stakeholder model that has defined WSIS for 2 decades. We support the vital work of WSIS and the Internet Governance Forum in creating spaces where diverse voices shape our digital future. But parliaments bring something distinctive to this ecosystem, direct accountability to citizens. When people have concerns about digital governance, they don't write to technical committees, they contact their elected representatives. It's a complementary and essential mechanism of democracy. And we believe that parliaments provide 3 things: that unique qualities that strengthen digital governance. Firstly, democratic legitimacy as representatives of the people. Second, legislative authority, turning principles into law. And thirdly, democratic accountability, ensuring commitments are honoured. Next month, the IPU will co-convene a major parliamentary conference on artificial intelligence, bringing together parliamentarians to share good practices and develop coordinated approaches. This is the kind of work that connects global dialogue with national action, but we can do more. Drawing on Article 55 of the Pact for the Future, which recognises the importance of UN engagement with national parliaments, we respectfully call for the UNGA resolution to include provisions for systematic parliamentary engagement in WSIS and IGF processes as active partners who can signal what's feasible, what requires innovation, and what citizens are demanding. Our wish is to strengthen the multi-stakeholder model by better connecting global forums with national democratic processes, creating clearer pathways from international consensus to domestic reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for your contribution. Now I'd like to invite Shumaila Hussein Shahani from Tech Global Institute. Shumaila, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairs. My name is Shumaila Shahani, and I represent the Tech Global Institute. We co-submitted and fully endorsed the joint inputs by the Global Digital Justice Forum and the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS+20, and we align with many delegates who have in their inputs emphasized that bridging digital divides is the cornerstone of the WSIS vision. While the Zero Draft rightly focuses on the urgent need for connectivity, we are concerned it overlooks the deeper, more structural divides that emerge after a connection is established. Connectivity is the vital first step, but it is not the end goal. A connection alone does not guarantee empowerment or meaningful inclusion. We see three critical gaps. The first is data divide. Access to affordable, meaningful data is as crucial as the physical infrastructure itself. Without it, connectivity remains an unfulfilled promise. Second, the skills divide. We must invest not just in basic digital literacy, but in the advanced skills needed to create, critique, and navigate digital spaces safely and effectively. And third, the participation divide. This is about the capacity for individuals and communities to meaningfully participate in the digital public sphere, to have their voices heard, and to shape the technologies that affect their lives. This leads to a crucial cross-cutting issue, the protection of communication rights. Democratic participation and the protection of civic space are increasingly mediated through digital platforms, and if these spaces are not open, secure, and inclusive, they can stifle rather than strengthen democratic resilience. As such, we must broaden our scope, our focus. We call on this draft to more explicitly address the data divide, to commit to programs for building digital skills at all levels, and to include measures that safeguard communication rights and democratic participation online. Thank you.
Thank you, Shumaila. Now I would like to invite Giacomo Mazzone from Eurovisione. Giacomo, the floor is yours.
Hear me?
Is Giacomo? Giacomo, yes. Yes,
Can
please,
you
you
hear
can
me?
continue.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Ambassador, for the floor. I want to say something about the same topic that has been discussed by my previous speakers, the connectivity and the meaningful connectivity especially. We suggest that the world media will be included among the multi-stakeholder groups, because the media are fundamental in order to reach especially the more vulnerable communities and the rural and remote areas. The second point that we want to underline is that there is substantial risk when the connectivity is only providing non-respectful material that are not adapted and not suitable for the communities to which they are addressed. They can provoke damages to the communities, and in this sense, the public trust is a very essential point and need to be stressed in the document further. there is another point that is the data provided on point 21 of the document of the zero draft that I profit this opportunity to say that is very laudable and very well done. In point 21, there are data concerning the availability of the internet signal. These data are written in a way that can be misinterpreted because 95% of the population of the world is reached by internet access. Yes, it's true, but then the real access is 2/3 less than that. So I think that the phrase need to be reformulated because if not, it's like say that 100% of the population of the world has access to water because it rains one day. And I don't think that is an exact comparison. The last point that I want to stress is about that one of the main obstacles that we have to the penetration of the internet is the affordability of the devices, but also the affordability of the tariff. Today we have ways of communication that are free to air, that people has not to pay for it, and I think that we need to preserve this even in the future of the internet, giving the possibility to those that have no connection and no subscription to access to essential communication like e-government, prevention of catastrophes and other essential services. Thank you very much, and I wish you good work.
Thank you, Giacomo, for the contribution of Eurovisione. Now I would like to invite Kayode Oyeyemi from Africa ICT Alliance. Kayode, you can have the floor. Do we have Kayode online?
Good afternoon, colleagues. Sorry, this is Dr. Coyote, but I am representing Ficta. I just want to confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. We don't see you, but we can hear you clear and loud. You can continue.
My apologies. My camera is, I'm battling with the connectivity, so I won't waste much more time. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, in terms of Ficta's stance with the gaps in the zero draft document with regards to the digital divide, what we see is that there is insufficient specificity and measurability. So there are commitments that are being made, but we need to ensure that there are clear targets, there are clear indicators and timeframes, or accountability mechanisms. What we'd also like to see is that there are unfortunately weak or vague commitments on persons with disabilities. So we need more focus on the accessibility for people with disabilities. We'd like to also see that a larger focus and attention given to the digital divide, but addressing a lot more gaps in the specific gender. We would like to see that there's more inclusion and commitments for women and girls, specifically in the rural areas. There's great opportunities for job empowerment and education, but we do have the challenges in the rural and indigenous and minority populations. Something that is also very important for us is local content, linguistic diversity and minority languages, which is insufficiently emphasized and represented. And something which I think is very common across the board is the affordability for device access, as well as the last mile connectivity. Africa is a large continent. We do have some challenges of the size of the landscape, so it does make our backhaul networks a lot expensive to run. And we don't have the type of infrastructure which is affordable for the rural areas to to make use of. We also have some challenges in terms of various regulatory bodies which don't allow new entries into the various into the specific sector. Also, financing and sustainable funding is a challenge. We would like to see more emerging technologies, but there are some risks in terms of the various emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence and data governance and privacy. So whilst that is fantastic for us to grow, there are some challenges and some ethics concerns around that, specifically in bias and possible exclusion of people. I see I've got 1 second and I will pause there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kauda, for your contribution. Now I would like to invite Udit Pandey, SRM, University Sonepat. Udit, the floor is yours. Can we check if Udit is online?
Please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear and we see you. You can start.
So a very good morning or a good afternoon to the chair, distinguished delegates, and all the fellow stakeholders. My name is Udit Pandey and I'm speaking from India. I would like to address a very key and an emerging issue, digital accessibility for persons with disability. Zero Draft has reaffirmed our shared commitment to the rights of persons with disabilities, that persons with disabilities should access ICTS equally. However, the digital divide is stark. According to a rough estimation, globally, 1.3 billion people of the world's population live with some form of disability, which equates to nearly 16% of the world's total population, and yet persons with disabilities are excluded from the internet. For a person without a disability, accessing internet is very simple: a compatible handset and a data pack. But for persons with disability, accessing and meaningful access to internet hinges on accessibility. So when accessibility is denied, it is not a systemic failure, but a denial of one's fundamental rights to civic engagement. The current situation, it's very alarming. Nearly 95% of the world's top 1 million homepage have detectable WCAG compliance issues. I call upon member states to mandate two non-negotiable outcomes in the final document. One, there should be a mandate adherence to the global WCAG 2.1 AA guidelines and should strictly adhere to the POUR principle that equates to perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Second, while designing DPI, digital public infrastructures, accessibility should be kept at its center because the Zero Draft champions that the DPIs plays a very crucial role in building a very digital literate economy. In conclusion, I would like to say that this is a very pivotal time where we should align our goals with the Convention of Rights of Persons with Disabilities and should uphold the spirit of the dialogue that nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Thank you, Udit, for your participation and contribution. Now I would like to invite Julian Casasbuenas from Colnodo. Julian, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this opportunity to participate in this space with our proposals to be considered in the Bridging Digital Divides and Financial Mechanisms. I'm speaking on behalf of Colnodo, a civil society Colombian organization that is part of the Colombian Internet Governance Forum and member of the Association for Progressive Communications, APC. Our proposal could be added into paragraph 32 of the Zero Draft, aligned with the language of both the Global Digital Compact and Colnodo and APC's practical experiences in implementing community networks in Colombia and other parts of the world. So paragraph 32 will read, we call on governments, multilateral development banks, relevant international organizations, civil society, and the private sector to develop innovative financial mechanisms and initiatives to connect the unconnected to the internet and to improve the quality and affordability of connectivity, including through investing in the deployment resilient digital infrastructure in rural, remote, and hard-to-reach areas, and by promoting equitable access to satellite orbits, taking into account the needs of developing countries. In doing so, it is essential to promote inclusive and local-driven solutions, such as local networks, including community networks, which have proven effective in bridging the digital divide in rural, remote, and underserved areas, while strengthening local capacity and ensuring that connectivity responds to community needs and priorities. As member of APC, we want to endorse the proposal to establish a financial task force to promote innovative mechanisms building on the 4th International Conference on Financial for Development and anchored in the WSIS architecture, specifically in paragraph 32 to include. We call for the establishment of a dedicated task force anchored in the WSIS architecture to explore and propose financial mechanisms to support implementation of the WSIS visions and goals, building on the outcome of the 4th International Conference on Financial for Development and giving consideration to public finance, revision of the design and deployment of universal service funds, development bonds, tax revenue, and other forms of private investment and innovative and collaborative approaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian, for your contribution. Now we are going to address the second theme, enabling environment for digital development and digital economy. And first in the list is Mr. Paul Blaker from Government of the United Kingdom. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Blaker. I am Head of ITU and Internet Governance for the UK Government. Apologies, I won't put my camera on. I have very little bandwidth where I am at the moment. We'd like to congratulate the co-facilitators and their teams for the Zero Draft and thank them for the very open way in which they have sought to engage with and listen to all stakeholders. And I hope that all governments will be listening to the valuable contributions that stakeholders are making, including the powerful contributions we've already heard this morning. We were very pleased to see a section in the Zero Draft on an enabling environment, but we think that it needs to be more clearly focused on building an enabling environment for investment. This is one of the most important sections because it is directly impacting on the priority to connect the unconnected. 1/3 of the world population is still offline. That's a huge digital divide. And to address that divide, we hope this section will set out more clearly and more directly the actions that we need to take. The ITU and other organizations have done a lot of work identifying best practice here. And there are clear steps we can take to promote investment in new infrastructure, new networks, and new services. That means, for example, streamlining licensing processes. ensuring there is competition in the market, ensuring there is transparent pricing for customers. It means putting in place regulation which is independent, transparent, predictable, and proportionate, making it easier to deploy and to share infrastructure, targeting public investment in areas where the market has failed to provide, and using universal service funds effectively with transparent and competitive procurement. It means supporting public-private partnerships and supporting innovative community-based approaches of the kind that we've just heard about. And it means making sure spectrum is available and used efficiently, and avoiding excessive taxation of telecoms, because owning a mobile phone should not be treated as a luxury. We know these steps can work. They encourage investment because so many countries are already taking these steps, and the result is greater connectivity, greater capacity, and greater affordability. And we hope the next draft of the outcome document will set out these steps more clearly and with more focus, because these are the most important areas we need to address in order to connect the unconnected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul, for your contribution. Now I would like to invite Timea Suto from International Chamber of Commerce. Timea, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ambassadors. I'm pleased to speak today on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce, the institutional representative of over 45 million companies in more than 170 countries. Let me begin by thanking you and your teams for your continued commitment to engage the multi-stakeholder community and your work on the Zero Draft, which we welcome as a comprehensive and forward-looking framework that rightly underscores the value of multi-stakeholder collaboration, the importance of human rights as a foundation of the information society, and the critical role of the Internet Governance Forum and its ecosystem. Turning to the section on enabling environments and the digital economy, bridging digital divides requires progress on two fronts: extending connectivity and addressing barriers to meaningful use. Both are essential to ensure that everyone can fully participate in the digital economy. This depends fundamentally on private sector investment across the entire digital ecosystem, from infrastructure and services to applications, skills development, and multilingual and locally relevant content. Such investment has been a major driver of progress under WSIS to date and will remain crucial in the years ahead. A strong example is the ITU's Partner to Connect Digital Coalition, where the private sector has made substantial commitments to expand connectivity, build capacity, and foster inclusion. Nearly $60 billion of the $80 billion pledged to date. These are tangible examples of how private sector investment can be mobilized for public good, but they depend on supportive and enabling policy frameworks to succeed. Creating sound, predictable, and forward-looking policy environments that not only promote but actively enable these investments should therefore be a central priority of the next phase of business. Such environments give businesses the confidence to expand networks, innovate, and reach underserved communities. We are encouraged that the Zero Draft recognizes the importance of enabling environments in key areas, including support for digital financial services in developing countries and for MSMEs, and that it highlights science, technology, and innovation as drivers of an inclusive and development-oriented information society. We also value the call for enabling environments that support innovation, protect data, consumer and intellectual property rights, nurture digital skills, and build trust in the digital economy. We would encourage that all references to enabling environments in the document, including paragraph 12 of the introduction, explicitly recognize the importance of protecting IP, which remains a cornerstone of innovation and creativity. Finally, we urge maintaining a balanced approach as the text evolves. Paragraph 35, in particular, could benefit from more precise and balanced language. While promoting a competitive and diverse digital economy is an important objective, it is vital to avoid interpretations that could inadvertently result in unsustainable regulation, protectionism, or measures that undermine investment and innovation. Given the complexity of these issues, it may even be preferable to delete the paragraph altogether and allow these matters to be considered in more specialized policy forums, or at least refine the language in line with our written proposal or the one made by the CCIA. In closing, the global business community stands ready to continue partnering with all stakeholders to build an enabling environment that drive investment, innovation, and inclusion, ensuring that the next phase of business delivers real and shared progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Timea, for your contribution. Now I would like to invite Syed Sultan Kazi, representing the Council for Social and Digital Development. Syed, the floor is yours.
Good evening from India, and good to see you, Your Excellencies, again. And thank you for this opportunity. And what specifically I wanted to highlight is that I come from a region from the Himalayan belt, Himalayan ranges, eastern and northeastern Himalayan ranges, which is close to 80 million population that we have. So specifically, to put it specifically, so what I just wanted to share is that it is in regards to the digital economy, it's very necessary to break down the whole terminologies, information, and the knowledge of the digital economy ecosystem, what actually it means for those last mile entrepreneurs or those people who are in the informal economy, informal segment of the economy. It's very, very important. Second point is in terms of it's necessary to recognize the needs of the nano-rural women, indigenous tribal entrepreneurs residing in traditional clusters because of this cluster-based ecosystem they live in, to ensure that benefits of digital economy reaches and extends to the vast majority of struggling and vulnerable enterprises, especially in a post-COVID pandemic emergence. So the next point is in terms of this is a concern for isolated communities in the mountain, hilly, indigenous, rural regions. Whenever we are from that part of the ecosystem, so we understand that the whole in terms of the knowledge, the economy, the understanding, what actually it means in digital economy, what actually it means to participate in the digital economy process, the capacities they need, the tools they need, the guidance they need, the support system they need, the ecosystem they need is very, very important. Otherwise, this will be a different kind of a digital divide where the majority segment of the population won't be able to get the benefits of being part of the digital society and economy. So next point is in terms of coming back to the enabling environment for the digital development. I think in this particular aspect that is very highlighted well in the zero draft. What again I wanted to highlight is in terms of the fragile nature of the ecosystem that we live in terms of the rising climate changes that we are talking about, the whole climate changes, environmental challenges that we have, and also the kind of a disaster that is happening. So what are the kind of the infrastructure or the kind of an alternative mechanism that is in place so that the people are not disconnected and are also the lifelines are taken away in when this kind of calamities or disasters are happening. So what is the preparedness for that in terms of the definition that we talk about an enabling environment for digital development for those segment of population who are in the vulnerability areas? And the next point is in terms of the, again, I'm saying from my experiences from wherever I am from this part of the world, is in terms of the fragile nature, the really unreliable nature of the electricity, the power deficit that is widely also affecting the kind of information societies that we should have, the resilient information societies, information economy that we talked about. So I think this is one of the important segment. And finally, I think what we wanted to highlight is in terms of the zero draft, perhaps it has already highlighted most of the important things and also going to improvise further based on the input that you are taking in. But finally, we want to consider that identifying and recognize the specific needs of the communities, the regions is also equally important because there is also a divide in terms of priorities within a nation state, within an economy also. So how that divide of perception of policies and priorities within an economy, within a region is also being considered is very, very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Syed, for your contribution. Now I would like to invite Gabriel Del Sol from Computer and Communication Industry Association. Gabriel, you can take the floor.
Thank you, co-facilitators, excellencies, and distinguished colleagues. I am Gabriel Del Sol from the Computer and Communications Industry Association, or CCIA, an international nonprofit membership organization representing companies in the computer, internet, ICT, and telecommunications industries. We welcome the opportunity today to comment on the zero draft of the outcome document for the WSIS+20 review. And I also want to welcome the comments from several of my colleagues on the call yesterday and today, and want to specifically endorse those of the International Chamber of Commerce, Microsoft, APCO, and the Africa ICT Alliance. CCI has already submitted written comments in response to the request for input on the zero draft. So for the sake of brevity, I will focus my comments today on the sections on the digital economy and the enabling environment. Regarding paragraph 35 specifically, CCI believes that the language in the zero draft goes beyond the scope of the WSIS+20 review process, and that it would call as it written for market regulation and specific competition policy measures, which are better discussed in other specialized fora, including the OECD and UNCTAD, as well as in national regulatory processes. The paragraph as written could dilute the clarity and effectiveness of the WSIS framework, and to that end, CCI aligns with the written inputs of several stakeholders, including the government of the United Kingdom, which calls for the removal of paragraph 35 in its entirety on this basis. However, if the paragraph is retained at a minimum, we welcome the idea that the co-facilitators consider substantially revising it. While it rightfully recognizes as is the importance of ensuring the benefits of digital cooperation are fairly distributed, the language should therefore focus on outcomes-based goals, such as promoting access, capacity, and inclusion, rather than prescribing rigid policy responses which could constrain choice. This would ensure the text remains consistent with the spirit and mandate of the WSIS process, while allowing for flexible, context-specific approaches across countries and technologies. Second, regarding paragraph 40, CCI notes that given the broad scope of technologies discussed and the absence at this point of a clear evidence-based consensus on their cumulative employment effects across diverse regions and demographics, the text should adopt a measured and forward-looking approach. Rather than speculating on job displacement, it would be more consistent with the WSIS framework to emphasize skills development, capacity building, and inclusion, which are central to enabling the outcomes that allow individuals and communities to adapt and benefit from digital transformation. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide input on this process, and we look forward to continuing to engage throughout the drafting process. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel, for your concrete proposals. Now I would like to invite the participants that are being registered for the third topic on human rights. We'll start with Anna Osterling from Article 19. Anna, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, colleagues, thank you. I am Anna Osterling, and I speak on behalf of Article 19, a local to global human rights organization focusing on freedom of expression and related rights. As part of our WSIS+20 advocacy, Article 19 has collaborated across stakeholder communities through several coalitions, including the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS. Ambassador Janina, Ambassador Locale, thank you for organizing so openly with all stakeholders. The zero draft offers a strong starting point. Article 19 applauds that the draft explicitly anchors the WSIS framework in international human rights law. The world needs human rights-based digital governance. We call on states to vigorously defend the proposed human rights language. This language is all taken from agreed UN language and therefore reflects states' existing obligations. Article 19 has submitted proposals to strengthen the zero draft further. I will highlight 10, all based on existing UN language. 1. Refrain from or cease using digital technologies that are fundamentally incompatible with human rights. 2. Strengthen human rights safeguards across the whole text, particularly on DPI, data governance, and AI. 3. All human rights need to be incorporated across the full life cycle, from pre-conceptualization over standardization all the way to trade of all digital technologies. Gender equality and digital inclusion are particularly key. 4, reaffirm that any limitation to freedom of expression and the right to privacy must be subject to the narrowly defined principles of legitimacy, legality, necessity, and proportionality as established by international human rights law. 5, clarify private sector obligations under the UN guiding principles, including applying human rights due diligence and impact assessments throughout the full technology lifecycle, taking accountability for mitigating and preventing harm and abuses, and providing timely, appropriate, and effective remedy. The text should also address the unprecedented market concentration, with a handful of companies disproportionately shaping the digital economy, significantly impacting everyone's human rights. 6, allocate the required resources to the OHCHR as a primary UN actor advancing human rights in the digital space. 7, in addition to internet shutdowns, address blocking, filtering, and throttling of online content when used as censorship. 8, promote strong encryption and anonymity. ever so vital for civil society and journalists to work safely. 9, underline the importance of free, independent, plural, and diverse media so our democracies can survive and thrive. And 10, affirm universal and meaningful connectivity as an essential enabler to enjoy all human rights. Finally, we recommend implementing the Sao Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines in multi-stakeholder and multilateral digital policy-making processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for the concrete and comprehensive proposals you have presented today. Now I would like to invite Elina Volskone from Microsoft to take the floor. Elina, you have the floor.
Thank you, ambassadors, and thank you for this opportunity. We believe the Zero Draft provides a robust foundation for intergovernmental negotiations, reaffirming the vital importance of multi-stakeholder cooperation in internet governance and emphasizing openness, security, and the need to address the risks of internet fragmentation. We appreciate that the document underscores the essential role of the private sector, incorporates agreed language on tech transfer, supports a permanent IGF, and aligns WSIS implementation with the Global Digital Compact. More specifically, the human rights chapter is comprehensive and represents a clear improvement over the elements paper, with strong references to established human rights instruments. We welcome that the Zero Draft affirms human rights as central to the WSIS vision. These commitments are foundational as human rights form the core of global digital policy. Building an inclusive, open, safe, and secure digital space demands that all stakeholders actively respect, protect, and promote human rights. Our proposals on human rights aim to ensure a more thorough and balanced framing in the WSIS+20 outcome document. We strongly encourage reaffirming a human rights-centered approach while also expanding the narrative to acknowledge the constructive role of technology in upholding and advancing these values. Human rights should be viewed as guiding principles that actively shape digital ecosystems across all sectors and regions. We recommend explicitly stating that progress towards the WSIS vision should be measured by advancements in the realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms, as referred in the outcome document of the WSIS+10 review. This perspective strengthens accountability and ensures alignment with international commitments. Microsoft recommends reinforcing member states' obligations to protect human rights in digital environments, while clarifying the private sector's responsibilities to respect these rights. We advocate for the inclusion of stronger, more precise language on safeguards to prevent and address human rights harms. Additionally, we propose that the negative effects of digital divides on the right to freedom of expression be explicitly acknowledged, and that the right to access information be added to further reinforce the human rights dimension of digital inclusion. In closing, we appreciate the improved framing of emerging technologies, which now recognizes both the risks and the benefits. This balanced approach is vital for effective digital governance and can help ensure a future where digital progress and human rights advance together, leaving no one behind. Once again, thank you, ambassadors, and all the best in future endeavors.
Thank you, Elina, for your contribution. Now I'd like to invite Tobekile Matimbe from Paradigm Initiative to take the floor. Tobekile, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, co-facilitators, Chair. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Tobekile Matimbe, and I work for Paradigm Initiative, an organization promoting digital rights and inclusion in Africa and the Global South. And we also are part of the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS. I will start by acknowledging the WSIS+20 review process and the various engagements that the co-facilitators have led to date. We welcome the Zero Draft, which has extensively underscored the need for bridging the digital divides of fair data economy and the promotion of human rights. We had requested to speak as well under digital divides, so with your indulgence, I'll just speak two major points briefly as I touch on human rights as well. So our first submission would be a proposal on paragraph 25, where we propose that there is a more precise, or in addition, more robust provision as follows. We recommend adequate measures that ensure the inclusion of persons with disabilities in shaping interventions that promote their access to information and communications technologies and the internet, including meaningful budgetary action that ensures that persons with disabilities have access to assistive digital technologies. To this end, we urge all stakeholders to include persons with disabilities in the development and the implementation of national strategies for digital connectivity. Secondly, we urge the concerted use of universal access approaches such as universal service access funds to progressively realize universal access for all. We also urge the financial support for community-centered connectivity initiatives and other local-led strategies to enhance affordable access to information and communications technologies and the internet. With regards to human rights, our proposition is on paragraph 77. We propose the inclusion of the right to privacy as a key human right. This is also in line with its mention in paragraph 89 of the Zero Draft. We propose its inclusion as as stated below. We recognize that human rights have been central to the vision of the World Summit on the Information Society, and that information and communications technologies have shown their potential to strengthen the exercise of human rights, enabling access to information, the right to privacy, freedom of expression, and freedom of assembly and association. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Thobekile, for your participation and contribution. Now I would like to invite Li Zhu from the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Li, the floor is yours.
Thank you, co-facilitators. My name is Li Zhou from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Thank you to the co-facilitators and the Secretariat for convening this stakeholder consultation and for facilitating an inclusive process for the WSIS+20, including the establishment of the IMSB, which together with these consultations provide a crucial avenue for the realization of the right to participation in this important process. OHCHR supports a multi-stakeholder approach to the WSIS+20 process. There are many elements that we as OHCHR welcomes in the Zero Draft, which is a continuation of the centrality of human rights recognized in the Geneva Declaration and the Tunis Agenda. As a pillar of the United Nations, human rights provides an internationally agreed legal framework that provides a common understanding of some of the issues that are being brought up and addressed in WSIS, including topics that previous speakers have already brought up today. From addressing discrimination and accessibility to the protection of privacy, from human rights due diligence to corporate responsibility and accountability, the human rights system has in recent years developed a body of knowledge that can provide a useful contribution to digital governance. Therefore, OHCHR views the WSIS+20 process as an opportune moment to enhance the collaboration and exchange between the UN human rights system and the WSIS architecture. We call for strengthening the text on human rights, which we have shared in written form, and I would like to share three specific proposals. Firstly, we welcome the role given to OHCHR in paragraph 130 and suggest that this can be further concretized in future revisions, where OHCHR is requested to contribute to the work of all action lines. Secondly, building on the Global Digital Compact, which recognized the role of the Human Rights Council, this WSIS outcomes document could also facilitate coordination by providing a link between the Human Rights Council and WSIS mechanisms, including the Internet Governance Forum. Thirdly, OHCHR welcomes the commitments in the Zero Draft in the section relating to human rights, and we propose a concrete action for this section in the form of an annual flagship report to the Internet Governance Forum and the Human Rights Council on human rights and the information society, bringing in analysis from the human rights system based on engagement with stakeholders, as well as national and regional IGFs. Together, these would facilitate collaboration and exchange between WSIS and the UN human rights mechanisms, living up to the commitments of Geneva and Tunis for a people-centered, inclusive, development-oriented information society that respects and upholds the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Thank you, co-facilitators.
Thank you, Lee, for presenting the views of the Office of High Commissioner in this discussion. Now, I would like to invite Laura O'Brien from Access Now to take the floor. Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellencies, colleagues, thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the WSIS stakeholder consultation on the Zero Draft. We thank the co-facilitators and the Secretariat for your coordinated efforts to ensure a meaningful and inclusive WSIS review process. Access Now is a civil society organization working at the intersection of technology and human rights. We are also a member of the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS, so our comments today are therefore grounded in the shared priorities and the outputs of the GDRC WSIS Coalition. We welcome that the Zero Draft anchors the WSIS framework in international human rights law, which underlines the centrality of a human rights-based digital governance and reaffirms the multi-stakeholder principles of meaningful cooperation and engagement. As a cornerstone of the United Nations, human rights offers an internationally recognized legal framework that fosters a shared understanding of many current issues emerging in the digital age. We specifically commend that the entirety of the human rights and ethical dimensions of the Information Society section is founded on existing references within the UN system, including states' existing international human rights obligations. Nonetheless, we would like to highlight three main considerations to strengthen the text. First, to call not only on member states, but also other stakeholders to refrain from or cease the use of digital technologies that are fundamentally incompatible with human rights. This is in line with international human rights law and has been affirmed recently in the General Assembly and Human Rights Council via resolutions. We further want to underscore that any restrictions on human rights must be subject to the principles of legitimacy, necessity, proportionality, and legality as established by international human rights law. Second, reinforce human rights across the entirety of the text, particularly on the paragraphs on digital public goods and digital public infrastructure and artificial intelligence. Harms to individuals may not be immediately obvious. A human rights-based framework should be integrated throughout the life cycle of these digital technologies to anticipate, assess, and effectively mitigate any potential human rights harms, as well as power differentials. And third, we reaffirm the mandate of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the WSIS. OHCHR has been engaging in research on digital technologies and their human rights implications for over a decade. We therefore support the three concrete proposals just shared by OHCHR today to enhance the collaboration exchange between the UN human rights system and the WSIS architecture. In conclusion, we would like to revert your attention to the GDRC WSIS Coalition joint statement on the 10 steps to strengthen stakeholder engagement in the WSIS+20 intergovernmental phase. We, alongside this over 75 endorsers, urge that these recommendations be implemented ahead of the intergovernmental stage of the WSIS review. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for your contribution. Now, I would like to invite Nandini Chame from IT for Change to take the floor. Nandini, you have the floor.
Greetings, Your Excellencies, colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to input into this consultation. IT for Change, a civil society organization based in India, would like to make three specific comments on the text of the Zero Draft pertaining to human rights. Firstly, in paragraph 80, the text must explicitly acknowledge that upholding international human rights law throughout the life cycle of digital and emerging technologies extends to their design, development, deployment, use, monitoring, and where necessary, their discontinuation, withdrawal, or reversal, and ensure safeguards to prevent and remedy violations of individual and collective rights. This will help us ensure that the question of human rights protection in the life cycle of digital and emerging technologies is not just confined to user rights, but about the rights of all those who are implicated or affected in the digital value chain, ranging from precarious data, labor, environmental rights of communities affected by data centers, livelihood rights of marginal farmers in agri-tech ecosystems, cultural rights of indigenous communities whose knowledge is colonized for generative AI models, and so on. Secondly, paragraph 83 should not merely call on all stakeholders to protect and promote human rights. It must explicitly address the impunity of transnational digital corporations. Para 83 should underscore the global enforcement of the United Nations guiding principles on business and human rights without dilution, exception, or selective application. It should also explicitly condemn the participation of transnational digital corporations in the economy of genocide. Further, it must urge for specific recognition of state obligations to protect against human rights abuses by their digital business in global technology value chains and to ensure effective implementation of HRC guidance for technology companies in respect of remedies. Finally, Paragraph 81 should call for comprehensive and continuous human rights impact assessments of digital technologies. Further, it should emphasize the need for fundamental rights impact assessments for all technological systems, particularly data and AI systems, to follow the precautionary principle in the adoption of technological applications. Thank you once again for this opportunity to input into the consultation.
Thank you, Nandini, for your contribution. Now I'd like to invite Ellie McDonald from Global Partners Digital. Ellie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellencies, colleagues, I'm Ellie McDonald and I'm speaking on behalf of Global Partners Digital. I'd like to begin by thanking the co-facilitators and the Secretariat for your hard work on the Zero Draft and commitment to making this an open and inclusive process. From the outset, GPD, together with others in this community, has called for a strong multi-stakeholder approach, publishing a 5-point plan and 8 recommendations with concrete ideas for how to embed multi-stakeholder principles. Yesterday, alongside 55 organizations and 34 individuals, we launched the 10 steps, offering guidance for how the UN and governments can further strengthen legitimacy in the intergovernmental phase. We hope our recommendations are useful and stand ready to support their implementation. Turning now to the Zero Draft. GPD is a member of the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS, and our intervention is grounded in the submission of the coalition. Overall, this is a strong draft with many elements to be defended. We particularly welcome the language on human rights, gender mainstreaming, multi-stakeholder cooperation, the permanence of the IGF, and the alignment between WSIS, the GDC, and the 2030 Agenda. These are critical foundations that should be maintained. At the same time, we believe some areas should be strengthened. Particularly, more work is needed to translate existing human rights commitments into clear action. For instance, references to human rights due diligence should clarify that this is a critical tool for states and the private sector to meet their existing obligations and responsibilities under international human rights law. The text should reaffirm that certain technologies and their uses are prohibited under international human rights law and explicitly condemn internet shutdowns, other forms of network interference, and mass surveillance. International human rights law safeguards should be applied consistently throughout the text, including to discussions of digital public goods and digital public infrastructure, AI, and data governance. The role of the OHCHR should be further consolidated and other UN human rights mechanisms integrated in the manner just proposed by the speaker from the OHCHR. Some adjustments are also required to reinforce the WSIS foundations of distributed and multi-stakeholder governance. For instance, we recommend revising the language in paragraph 118 to ensure a transparent and community-driven consultation on the IGF's future funding. The GDRC submission provides clear proposals grounded in existing UN language to give effect to our recommendations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ellie, for your contribution. Now I'd like to invite Peter Brook from International Center for New Media to take the floor. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ambassadors, for this opportunity. I don't envy you to have to listen to all these presentations, but I want to make 2 very global points. One is that the vision of WSIS which ICNM has participated since 2002-2003, is the vision of the knowledge society, and that is entirely missing in the current text. The second thing is that we are very, very clear that the current economic and technological environment is characterized by an unprecedented form of concentration in the hands of two handful global companies. And unless we address, and the text addresses these two, it fails to live up to this expectation. ICNM has been the main drive behind the World Summit on Information Society award that WSE has a footprint in 182 countries. We have 600 volunteers, experts working 400 national contact points, and we have evaluated over 15,000 submissions regarding best practices in applying the action lines of this. The Geneva Declaration mentions knowledge society explicitly as something which is where WSIS needs to develop towards, but it is very much reduced to information society, which means it's technology-driven and not human-centered. So unless this vision of the knowledge society is put front and central, even especially regarding human rights, it is always an addendum, but it's not essential. The other thing is that the business process, including the Internet Governance Forum, failed to address the political economy of the development of converging digital industries and their consequences. The world today is entirely different than the world from 2003 and 2005, and the zero draft implication that there's a continuity is false. Rather, there's a complete rupture. Digital technologies have led to a historically unprecedented concentration of technological and economic power in the hands of a few companies. And human rights will have to address the data grab of those companies, which they are enriching themselves continuously and undermining the governments of Kenya and Albania and others as they go along. So we are very strong that the WSA global community and ICNM advocate that strongly the vision of the knowledge society is made central to the zero draft in the preamble, in the introduction, and in the section on human rights and digital divides. And key issues needs to be addressed that it's not an issue of building high-speed internet everywhere, but that we, especially under the impression of AI, need to put the knowledge society into the hands of everybody. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Peter, for your contribution. Now I would like to invite Elona Hickok from Global Network Initiative to take the floor. Elona, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the co-facilitators for the opportunity to provide remarks. My name is Elena Hickok from the Global Network Initiative. GNI is a multi-stakeholder initiative working towards responsible business conduct in the tech sector. We are also working with Global Partners Digital to implement a project focused on facilitating global majority participation in the WSIS+20 process. We are working with partners in South Africa, Zambia, Ghana, Chile, Colombia, Brazil, Bangladesh, and India. We endorse and have contributed to the submission by the Global Digital Rights Coalition. My comments today reflect GNI's position to the zero draft. First, I would like to thank the co-facilitators for making this an inclusive and open consultation and continuing to bring together multiple stakeholders to learn from each other. Congratulations to the co-facilitators for a strong zero draft with robust language on human rights. As my colleagues have said, this language should be maintained and defended. A few points to further strengthen the language in the draft around human rights. One, on the text around private sector accountability, referencing the responsibility of companies to conduct human rights due diligence and human rights impact assessments throughout the full product life cycle when developing and implementing policies and services and when moving into new markets. HRDD and HRIAs are core to the framework provided by the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights and are essential in ensuring emerging risks posed by evolving technologies are identified and addressed through an iterative process. These practices will be key in ensuring evolving technologies like AI are rights respecting. The text also needs to emphasize the need for transparency independent oversight and remedy, especially in relation to content moderation, algorithmic systems, and surveillance. In addition to referencing human rights and international human rights frameworks across the text, human rights should be referenced in thematic sections of the Zero Draft, as pointed out by my colleagues in the context of AI, data governance, and DPI. With AI, I think it's important to ensure that the use of digital technologies in some circumstances cannot be justified under international human rights law. For data governance, it's important to take a data justice approach. And with DPI, it's important that the text recognizes what a rights-based approach to DPI would be, including having an enabling law, clear oversight and accountability, and safeguards to protect against surveillance. Section 77 on the Zero Draft should recognize the right to privacy as a fundamental human right. And the text should explicitly recognize the negative impact of network restrictions and overly broad surveillance practices on human rights, and reaffirm that such practices violate rights recognized under international human rights law, especially Articles 19 and 20 of the ICCPR. And lastly, I would endorse following the 10-step plan recently published by the GDRC for an inclusive WSIS+20 process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elonai, for your contribution. Now I'd like to invite Jean-Lini Zdinko from Anusia Foundation. Jean, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Jean-Lini Zdinko, and we at Anusia Foundation welcome the opportunity to comment on the Zero Draft for the WSIS. We're only given 3 minutes, so I'll go straight to the point. Any invocation of a people-centered approach and cooperation that lumps together corporations, states, and workers side by side as equal partners falls apart on contact with reality. Not only does this erase the class dynamics between groups, it also pretends that there is no difference between a worker in the Philippines earning 50 cents an hour labeling images for AI model or a cobalt miner in the Congo and the executives who profit from their labor. And by flattening this hierarchy, the draft assumes that the power imbalance is suddenly somehow resolved. We also want to push back on the narrative that the environmental crisis we are facing today as a species can be reframed as a technical challenge that is solvable through efficiency and circular economy. By doing so, it ignores the fact that the planet's demise is driven by the same profit motive that governs digital expansion itself. The draft does not acknowledge that the extraction of lithium, cobalt, and rare earth minerals is reproducing colonial patterns of exploitation. The draft describes the expansion of global networks as a victory for humanity. And sure, it does make us more connected. But if there is one thing that the draft glosses over completely, it is the fact that it refuses to ask the only question that matters. Who owns these networks? Who controls the flow of connection itself? We know now that fiber cables, cloud servers, and data centers are factories of the digital age, where every byte of data that flows through them is subject to rent. What the draft portrays as universal inclusion is in practice the deepening reach of global infrastructure owned by few conglomerates headquartered in rich countries. Further, the draft repeated mention of affordability, of which it was mentioned 9 times, hides the reality that billions are connected through debt, dependency, and precarious labor. The draft also says, and quite devotional, and it says the same rights that people have offline must also be protected online. And that is true. However, this promise remains fragile as it floats above the material realities that make rights impossible to exercise. What does privacy actually mean in a world where data itself is commodified? What does freedom of expression actually mean on platforms designed to privilege profit over truth? And if the WSIS really wants to leave a mark in this day and age, it must begin with an argument that digital infrastructure must be decommodified and technology must serve the collective needs instead of lining pockets of corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Now we need to address another topic, which is artificial intelligence. And I would like to invite the first speaker under this topic, Yoichi Ida from the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication of Japan. Yoichi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can see and hear you very clearly. You can
Okay,
start.
thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Yanina and Ambassador Locale. And I first would like to express our condolence for late Honorable Chair Peter Major. And we also express our gratitude to co-facilitators and the UN Secretariat for promoting productive work of WSIS+20 review. Japan highly appreciates the active engagement of WSIS process in AI governance discussion, aiming at ensuring inclusive and meaningful participation in global AI governance. As you may know, Japan is one of the most rapidly aging nations around the world with reducing population, and we need to leverage technologies like AI to keep our society lively. That is why we respect and promote enabling environment for innovation, and we believe in pro-innovative governance with risk-based regulation and minimum restriction. We believe AI governance and regulation should not be something to block and hinder innovation, but should be something to support and promote innovation by blocking or reducing risks and vulnerabilities. This is the underlying idea of Japan's AI Act and Japan's initiative of Hiroshima AI process that provide open, inclusive, and enabling governance framework. When governance is pro-innovative, we believe trust of all stakeholders is essentially important, and that is why multi-stakeholder approach is needed. We hope AI governance discussion at United Nations will embrace the same idea to realize inclusive AI society around the world that benefit everybody, not left behind. Japan is fully committed to working together with all stakeholders and all the relevant people. Turning to the text, Japan submitted our comment in writing to reduce the paragraph 100 and 101. Paragraph 100 is talking about the research program, but this looks duplicating the scientific panel of GDC. 101 is also talking about building fellowship, but the GDC will be discussing funding options, and we don't want to create confusion. We support paragraph 102, which is promoting panel and dialogue from GDC, and we hope these two work streams will go hand in hand with complementary roles taken by all relevant players. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Back to Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ida, for your participation and contribution. Now I'd like to invite Zach Lampel from International Center for Not-for-Profit Law. Zach, the floor is yours.
Thank you, co-facilitators, ambassadors, and colleagues. My name is Zach Lampel. I'm Senior Legal Advisor and Coordinator for Digital Rights at the International Center for Not-for-Profit Law. I'm also the co-chair with the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Government of Germany as co-chairs of the Task Force on Artificial Intelligence and Human Rights with the Freedom Online Coalition. First, I fully support and endorse the input submitted by the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS, the GDRC-WSIS, of which ICNL is a member. Artificial intelligence, or AI, holds both transformative and disruptive potential, but it can advance sustainable development. When AI complies with international human rights law and is governed responsibly throughout its life cycle, it can enhance efficiency, transparency, participation, and trust in democratic processes. AI governance frameworks must be firmly rooted in and in compliance with international law, including international human rights law. AI must be developed responsibly through inclusive multi-stakeholder processes and serve human needs and interests while respecting the full enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms. I make three main points for your consideration. First, consider amending paragraph 97 to incorporate additional language underlining the application of international human rights law obligations as they relate to AI. This includes the specific obligation to cease the use of systems that are incompatible with international human rights law, based on paragraph 5 of UNGA Resolution 78-265. Second, consider amending paragraph 100 to include a request that the AI research program that will be established includes opportunities for representatives and leaders from civil society to join and promotes gender balance in participation to ensure dedicated support for women and underrepresented groups in AI research. Third, and finally, consider adding a paragraph addressing the environmental implications and costs of AI systems. Specifically, request the Secretary General to promote information sharing between the UN Independent International Scientific Panel on AI and UN-affiliated environmental bodies, including the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. We want to ensure that AI-related environmental risks and costs, such as emissions, energy intensity, and resource extraction, are systematically assessed so that AI systems work for humans and society and sustainable development goals and do not work against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zach, for your contribution. Now I would like to invite Maiki Sipininen from IGF Policy Network on AI. Maiki, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, colleagues. I'm Maiki Sipinen. I represent the Policy Network on AI. So the Policy Network on Artificial Intelligence, or PNAI, is an active multi-stakeholder mechanism on AI governance that's located under the Internet Governance Forum. So my comments today focus on the AI part of the WSIS+20 Zero Draft. First, we embrace the Zero Draft's commitment to strengthening capacity building and research efforts on artificial intelligence. We appreciate the emphasis on leveraging existing resources and capabilities within the UN system. The Policy Network on AI is well placed and ready to serve as a hub in capacity building and research efforts on AI. The PNAI is actually an already existing and active global community, and it has been active in AI topics since 2023 already. PNAI organizes monthly open online meetings that gather government, technical community, private sector, civil society, and intergovernmental organizations, their stakeholders together to discuss AI policy and governance. The Policy Network has conducted research and published multi-stakeholder recommendations on various critical AI topics, such as interoperability of AI governance frameworks, AI liability challenges, environment and labor issues, and AI race and gender topics. The PNAI has particular focus on the Global South, and as an IGF initiative, the Policy Network has access to the global network of national and regional initiatives that are actually present in all world regions. So these strong connections to local actors and diverse AI contexts can be an advantage for research and inclusive capacity building. And to close, I want to highlight that the Policy Network on AI is an already existing active and well-established multi-stakeholder mechanism on AI policy and governance. The PNAI is keen to collaborate with other mechanisms so that we can realize the research and capacity building activities that are envisioned in the WSIS+20 Zero Draft. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maiki, for your contribution. Now I would like to invite Khaled Kouba from the AT-Worthy Technology. Khaled, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ambassadors. My name is Khaled Kouba. I'm speaking today from Tunisia. I am the founder and CEO of AT-Worthy Technology, which is a startup dedicated to assessing and enabling the worthiness of digital and artificial intelligence systems. I thank you, ambassadors, for this inclusive consultation, and I also welcome the numerous AI-related initiatives under the UN umbrella and several thematic initiatives by UN agencies. The WSIS+20 review offers a practical opportunity to coordinate these efforts and anchor them within the WSIS multi-stakeholder spirit and institutional framework. And the Zero Draft reaffirms the Global Digital Compact's vision for inclusive and coordinated AI governance. The task is actually not to measure and govern, is to measure and govern AI with the same coherence that transformed the internet from a research network into a global public infrastructure. To realize that vision, we need to create institutions that ensure a trustworthy AI. At Worthy, we call this AI worthiness. It means building responsible and trustworthy AI systems worthy of praise. AI governance must be understood from two interconnected perspectives: the technical dimension of data governance, ensuring interoperability, transparency, and data integrity, but also the policy dimension of AI's societal and human impact, ensuring that the artificial intelligence advances human welfare and aligns with shared ethical principles. We are already seeing the technical foundation of the agentic internet emerging through technical protocols such as MCP, A2E, A2P, and recently the ANC, which is clear that the missing part is the global governance layer. This is why I recently published a white paper where I proposed an ICANN for AI agent, a multi-stakeholder coordination body that would oversee the transparency, identity, and accountability standards for autonomous systems. Just as ICANN became today an institutional layer that embed and support that businesses and innovation flourishing around the world for the IP and the DNS system, a similar mechanism is now needed for securing the trustworthiness and the coordination across agentic internet. By including those two elements of AI worthiness and agent-level governance into the Zero Draft, we are sure that artificial intelligence system could empower the humanity with the transparency and inclusivity that we all request. And thank you so much for your leadership on this consultation process.
Thank you, Khaled, for your participation and contribution. I kindly ask now my co-facilitator, Ambassador Locale, to take over on the next topic on internet governance. Ambassador Locale, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for taking us through that session. I would like to thank everyone who has made their contribution in previous topics. I now would like to take us to the next topic that is on internet governance. And the first speaker would be Alexei Trepik-Halin from the internet, from ICANN, let's just say. Alexei, you have the floor.
Good morning, Ambassador Locale, Ambassador Yanina, Excellencies, and esteemed colleagues. ICANN appreciates the opportunity to share our contribution and insights into the preparatory process for the WSIS+20 review, including the drafting of the outcome document. ICANN considers the Zero Draft a well-crafted text that provides a strong basis for further development. In particular, ICANN welcomes the inclusion of these positive elements that we hope will be retained in the final version, namely, the affirmation of the multi-stakeholder cooperation as reflected in paragraph 3 of the introduction, the recognition of linguistic diversity as a key factor in bridging the digital divide as expressed in paragraphs 12, 16, and 30. The text in paragraph 104, which acknowledges the risk from fragmented internet architectures, and paragraph 106, which underscores the need for a continued, open, global, interoperable, stable, and secure internet. On the IGF, ICANN notes with appreciation paragraph 113, which recognizes that the IGF has evolved to include more than 170 national and regional IGFs. In addition, ICANN strongly supports the decision in paragraph 115 to make the IGF permanent, the approach in paragraph 116 to channel IGF outputs into relevant United Nations processes, and the invitation in paragraph 118 for the UN Secretary General to make proposals concerning future IGF funding. To help flesh out some ideas on how these proposals could be implemented, ICANN is pleased to refer to a working paper, the IGF We Want, which was submitted to the co-facilitators as part of our written comments earlier this month. We hope this contribution proves useful in informing subsequent iterations. ICANN remains committed to support WSIS+20's inclusive consultative process. Hence, we're pleased that the WSIS+20 co-facilitators team and UNDESA will be leveraging our ICANN 84 annual general meeting in 2 weeks as a platform for stakeholder consultations. The consultations will take place in a hybrid format and will be held on Monday, 27 October, during the Geopolitical Forum WSIS+20 focus session. You may register on the ICANN website to participate in the session. I included the link in the chat window. Also, just yesterday, ICANN board had an engagement session where community members provided feedback on the WSIS+20 review process. We're engaging our own community and other organizations to be able to provide relevant information on the technical underpinnings of the Internet to the UN member states. We have done it during the WSIS+10 review process, and we're happy to do it during WSIS+20. We're encouraged to see many written and oral submissions from the technical community as well as other relevant stakeholders. Co-facilitators, this brings me to the end of my intervention. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alexi, for your contributions, and thank you for the kind invitation to the ICANN meeting in Dublin. We look forward to seeing you in the next 2 weeks. Next speaker is Titi Casa from the Agency for Digital Italy of the Government of Italy. Titi Casa, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. My name is Titi Casa from AGIT, the Agency for Digital Italy, and thank you for this opportunity to comment on the Zero Draft. The document really serves as a strong and robust foundation for the discussion. I would like to highlight 4 key points on Internet governance section. First of all, I strongly support the formalization of the IGF as a permanent forum of the United Nations with a stable mandate, predictable funding, and an organizational structure capable of sustaining its activity over the long term. This, I think, is essential to secure a central role for the IGF in the global digital cooperation architecture. Second, I think it is crucial to strengthen the links between the IGF and the other UN processes and entities. The IGF should not operate in isolation, but act as a policy innovation hub, producing clear and actionable outcomes, synthesize messages and insights that can inform and feed into other processes such as the GDC, the WSIS Action Line, and SDG review. In this context, I would like to emphasize the need for a joint and coherent roadmap connecting the implementation of WSIS, the GDC, the SDG, and the IGF. Such a roadmap with measurable indicator and shared milestone would ensure coherence, avoid duplication, and creates real synergy across these processes. Third, I highlight the critical role the NRIs, the MAG, the LP, and the DC have, as this body are the key to enhancing multi-stakeholder engagement, supporting local realities, and measuring progress in the implementation of digital cooperation initiatives. NRIs can also serve as a valuable mechanism for collecting evidence and tracking WSIS GDC implementation at the national level. Fourth, I call for expanded participation, particularly for unrepresented communities, developing countries, and youth. I propose concrete mechanisms such as youth council and citizen council to integrate diverse perspectives into IGF decision-making and activities. Finally, I underline the need to strengthen the IGF Secretariat, providing it with the capacity to support NRIs, coordinate intersectional working, and maintain continuous dialogue across stakeholders. Adequate resources and more structured organization are essential for the forum to fully realize its mandate and effectively contribute to the WSIS outcomes and the Global Digital Compact implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Titi Casa, for those contributions. I would now like to give the floor to Konstantinos Komaitis from the Atlantic Council. Konstantinos, you have the floor.
Thank you, chairs, excellencies, and colleagues. My name is Konstantinos Komaitis, and I serve as a resident senior fellow with the Democracy and Tech Initiative at the Atlantic Council. Today, I'm speaking in my personal capacity. First, allow me to express my appreciation to the ambassadors for facilitating an open and transparent process and for ensuring that this forum remains a space where diverse voices and perspectives can be heard. 20 years after WSIS, we meet at a defining moment. The internet that once symbolized openness and connection now faces unprecedented strain from fragmentation, weaponization, and competing models of control. Yet, amid this turbulence, the WSIS vision still holds an internet that is open, global, secure, and rooted in human rights. The Zero Draft is an impressive starting point and serves as an important reminder that internet governance is not a zero-sum game, but a shared responsibility of all stakeholders. Its strength lies in the multi-stakeholder model, where government, civil society, the technical community, academia, and the private sector all have a seat and a voice. This model must be protected, strengthened, and replicated. At the heart of this ecosystem is the Internet Governance Forum. Making the IGF permanent is vital, and the Zero Draft reflects this, but permanence must come with purpose, impact, and connectivity. We need to, first, fully support national and regional IGFs by providing technical and financial resources, capacity building, and mechanisms to ensure their outputs fit into global IGF discussions. Second, encourage governments to establish national multi-stakeholder initiatives following successful models like CGI-BR in Brazil, which align policy innovation and social participation. These initiatives ensure local realities inform global governance. Third, create clear pathways for IGF outputs to influence policymaking, including regional summits and UN processes to transform dialogue into tangible action. Colleagues, the threat of the splinternet is real. Fragmentation through incompatible standards, data isolation, and digital protectionism endangers the open internet we have built together. To preserve one interoperable internet, we must reaffirm our commitment to human rights, technical standards, and rule of law principles online. Finally, none of this will endure without predictable and inclusive financing. To address this, I propose, first, the creation of a dedicated WSIS+20 financing task force tasked with identifying, coordinating, and mobilizing resources for internet development, connectivity, and multi-stakeholder initiatives. Establish transparent, milestone-based funding mechanisms that ensure every region can participate meaningfully in IGF processes. And finally, encourage partnerships between public institutions, private sector, and development banks to bridge the digital divide, invest in local innovation, and support capacity building. Let WSIS+20 be remembered not only as a milestone, but as a mandate for renewal, one where we choose unity over fragmentation, cooperation over competition, and inclusion over isolation. Let us match our ideals with concrete, actionable commitments that ensure the internet remains a force for progress, connection, and peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Konstantinos, for your contributions. I'd now like to give the floor to Dana Kramer from the WSIS Youth Caucus. Dana, you have the floor.
Excellencies, thank you for having me today. My name is Dana Kramer, and I coordinate the Canada Youth Internet Governance Forum and lead a nonprofit called the Young Digital Leaders of Canada. I am also part of the WSIS Youth Caucus, which this Youth Caucus submitted feedback to the Zero Draft and can be found at wsisyouthcaucus.org. Some of our members have been speakers in various capacities in yesterday's session. We were thankful for the recognition of youth within the preamble of the Zero Draft. We believe youth should be separated from children in all areas of digital development and should be explicitly referred to as youth. This, however, was not demonstrated in the Zero Draft, which used terminology of young people throughout the text and only youth in the preamble. This limits our stakeholder group's recognition of youth who have developed bottom-up capacity building programs, aided in internet governance projects and multi-stakeholder drafted policies, and have overall been a clearly identifiable and always evolving stakeholder group for the past 20 years. A clear space where our stakeholder group have made significant strides in a bottom-up capacity is through the coordination of youth internet governance forums throughout regions, sub-regions, and at national levels. It is to this that we, as a Youth Caucus, were quite disheartened that youth IGFs were not explicitly mentioned in paragraphs 113 and 118, which mentions the NRI network, which youth are part of as active contributors. This lack of recognition and utilizing the youth terminology erases our stakeholder group and the clear work other youth IGF coordinators have put in, which takes hundreds of hours each year to work to bring youth around the world together in their local communities to to build a next generation of digital development leaders. We believe that the utilization of young people throughout the text needs to change to youth. For instance, in paragraphs 13, 14, 21, 24, 44, and 93, separation of who is a young person is made through terms such as children, girls, people aged 10 or over, and future generations, which all demonstrate the capacity for more intricate separating out of young people within the text of the Zero Draft. Therefore, to determine spaces where youth are noted should not be too onerous for stakeholder recognition, where these youth might be aged 18 to 35, depending on the context of a space and the positionality of where youth are in the world. Further, explanation of defining youth might be found in the IGF Youth Atlas project, which note the breadth of defining youth tends to be a bottom-up task given variation across continents. We hope for these changes to be made in the next series of drafts of the WSIS+20 review, which will explicitly mention youth throughout it. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Dana, for your contribution. I'd like to give the floor to Kusai Al-Shati from 3rf.com. Kusai Al-Shati, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kusai Al-Shati from the Arab Internet Governance Community. First, we welcome the Zero Draft as a solid start and a good improvement toward the issues related to internet governance. We strongly support paragraph 103 on the working definition of the internet governance in coordination, in alliance with the Tunis agenda. And we strongly support paragraph 115 on making the IGF, the global IGF, as a permanent platform to discuss internet governance. However, we have some concern about some of the wordings that has been used in the Zero Draft. For example, if we go to paragraph 104, where we see the management of the internet, although the management of the internet was mentioned in the Geneva Declaration of Principles, however, at that time, internet governance was work in progress, and there was a WIGIC group to discuss this. And when it was mature and clear as an idea and as an approach, it was adopted in the Tunis agenda. So maybe mentioning the management of the internet and the internet governance may give a kind of a confusion in this respect, especially it may imply that a form of involvement in the day-to-day operation of the internet, and that is not the scope of the Tunis agenda or the Geneva Declaration of Principles. Moving to the paragraph 109, which is an enhanced cooperation. Although enhanced cooperation is mentioned in the Tunis agenda, however, during the last years, since 2005, it was a process that didn't go well for many reasons. So we would suggest that rather than giving the impression or going toward the direction of initiating a separate process for enhanced cooperation, we would suggest that many organizations, intergovernmental organizations, whether regional or global, exist, and they represent a form of enhanced cooperation. The OECD is a form of enhanced cooperation. The Government Advisory Council of the ICANN is a form of enhanced cooperation. The United Nations Regional Commissions, intergovernmental regional commissions, are a form of enhanced cooperation. So it can be coordinated among them rather than being an independent process within the WSIS. And thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Kusai Al-Shati, for your contributions. Now I would like to give the floor to Sabrina Wilkinson from the Technical Community Coalition for Multi-Stakeholderism. Sabrina, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, I'm speaking today on behalf of a Technical Community Coalition for Multi-Stakeholderism, or TCCM. TCCM is made up of members of the Internet's technical community, the companies, organizations, and groups whose day-to-day job it is to operate the critical infrastructure and services at the heart of the internet. We are united in our support for strengthened multi-stakeholder internet governance. We appreciate this opportunity to contribute to the WSIS+20 Zero draft, and we are grateful to the President of the General Assembly, to the co-facilitators, and to the Secretariat for their work thus far in the review process. We commend the co-facilitators on their proactive engagement with the broader multi-stakeholder community and encourage its continuation over the remainder of this process. TCCM recognizes that there are a broad range of views in the international community on the issues in the Zero draft, and we consider that the Zero draft is a promising start. We strongly support reaffirming the value and principles of multi-stakeholder cooperation and engagement, and we welcome the Zero draft's recognition of the technical community as a distinct stakeholder group. Today, I wish to highlight a number of specific points, including areas where we consider the draft can be further improved. First, we welcome language that would make the Internet Governance Forum permanent. Recalling paragraph 28 of the Global Digital Compact, we believe the IGF should be reaffirmed as the primary multi-stakeholder platform for discussion of internet governance issues. We also believe that future, stable, and diverse funding for the IGF is a critical issue for its future, and that decisions about future funding should be made in consultation with all relevant stakeholders. Second, we believe the WSIS action lines defined in the Geneva Plan of Action are broad, technology-neutral statements that remain suitable for their purpose of guiding actions of all stakeholders in achieving the WSIS vision. Third, we believe that ongoing cooperation between all stakeholders remains the best way to engage support for the internet and digital technologies, which are critical to building inclusive, resilient societies. Fourth, we support the renewal of the WSIS framework and integrating the Global Digital Compact without duplication, including efforts to build synergies with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and related initiatives. Further details and specific proposed amendments on each of these points are set out in our written submission to the Zero draft process, which is available at our website, tccm.global. And that submission was endorsed by 30 distinct technical operators. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Sabrina Wilkinson. I now give the floor to Dime Wariowoy from the National Information Technology Development Agency of Nigeria. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm talking on the auspices of the Nigeria Internet Governance Forum, which I chair at the moment. However, what I'm going to contribute here is not I'm not talking on behalf of the NIGF. I'm talking on the premise of what I have learned and what I see that needs some adjustments. That's why this presentation is made. Now, in the first instance, we agree and we are happy with the Zero draft, which serves as a starting point, a strategic starting point in the review process. Secondly, I also agree with the formulation of and formalization of the IGF, which is very highly supported. And thirdly, I looked at the we acknowledge the structures that already exist, which was captured in 113 by the growth that is identified at the moment and the 170 NRIs that are part of indications of how growth is made in the NIGF, in the IGF structure. However, my operational activities reveal that the current multi-stakeholder approach has some deficiencies. Firstly, the issue of funding. Funding has been a challenge because of members' apathy in the funding process. Coordination, because it is voluntary, it's usually quite difficult to ensure that mandatorily people should partake of the of the funding process and the coordination process. Then next, implementation of resolutions is also a challenge. Because of the voluntary nature, no one is actually compelled to carry out resolutions that are made, which constitute significant challenges in the actualization of whatever is done. Fourthly, I will look at paragraph 118, which talks about some kind of funding provision, the opportunities given to the Secretary General to escalate IGF, to ensure that the IGF Secretariat has some funding. And funding is a very critical aspect of this, because without strategic provisions made for funding, it will always revolve around laxity and the issue with people really getting onto it. But finally, I want to ensure that maybe, if it is possible, there should be some mandatory funding components included in 118, wherein subscribing organizations should be, so to speak, allowed to contribute effectively as part of the inclusion here. Finally, I want to support Dana, who talked about the Youth IGF's omission, because I understand the Youth IGF has contributed effectively, and even in Nigeria, this process of WSIS+20 was, was an idea from the Youth IGF. They've worked hard to capture the youth involvement in IGF, so we should effectively and specifically include the Youth IGF as part of all this process. I want to wish and thank the organizers for this open and inclusive way of accepting requests and contributions from every nook and cranny and everybody. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dimi Wariowoy from Nigeria. I would now like to give the floor to Desiree Milosevic from RIPE. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the RIPE NCC, part of the global Internet technical community. We are encouraged by the Zero Draft, and it's an ambitious document grounded in human rights and focused on bridging digital divide. It's encouraging to see that. Let me offer just 3 thoughts of reflection from our community. The first one being that the connectivity isn't just about cables and routers. It's about collaboration. The internet works because people, governments, operators, engineers, educators, and businesses all cooperate around shared protocols and open standards. And we hope that the Zero Draft could highlight this more clearly. A bridging digital divide depends on multi-stakeholder teamwork, not just on funding technology. That's with regards to paragraph 22. And also, second, when we talk about an enabling environment, we really are talking about creating the conditions for innovation, open data, open standards, but equally fair regulation and access to finance. These allow ideas to move more quickly from research to real impact, and that is how we keep the internet as a space for creativity and opportunity for everyone. We have thirdly commented on the internet governance paragraphs, especially the paragraph 115 and 118. And we strongly welcome the move to make the Internet Governance Forum a permanent UN platform with diverse and sustainable funding, with recognition of NRIs. And because it is a global meeting place where all stakeholders can meet for dialogue and collaboration. So it should remain inclusive and open and grounded in evidence as well. And we should reaffirm the role of open standards and interoperability, that invisible glue that keeps the internet a single global network rather than a collection of disconnected systems. Finally, as we review WSIS outcomes, we advise that we must measure progress inclusively, bringing data, evidence, and community insights together to ensure that decisions are based on reality. So the internet was built on cooperation and trust, and let's make sure that the WSIS framework continues to reflect this and to reflect that spirit, a living ecosystem and evolving mechanism that keeps the internet stable, secure, and open for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Desiree Milosevic, for your contribution. I now would like to give the floor to William Drake from Columbia University Institute for Teleinformation. Mr. Drake, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to provide input on the Internet Governance section. I'd like to make 3 textual suggestions. First, paragraph 103 begins by reaffirming the working definition that addresses the who, what, and how of Internet governance. This is especially important today, as there have been some discussions of late that could erode our collective understanding of the nature and boundaries of Internet governance. For example, it has been asserted that Internet governance primarily pertains to the underlying infrastructure, or that it is cleanly distinct from digital governance, especially data and AI governance, when in fact there are very substantial overlaps between these different domains. These assertions have sometimes been invoked to suggest that our existing institutions are too narrow in scope and hence must be changed, or that new institutions for digital governance must be created. But in fact, during the WSIS process 20 years ago, the international community came to a clear consensus that Internet governance pertained to both the Internet and its use in online activities. And that is why we agreed on a broad definition rather than a narrow definition. Hence, to limit unproductive debates about changing our existing institutions or creating new and potentially duplicative ones, why not add a second clarifying sentence to paragraph 103, such as, this definition covers both the Internet's infrastructure and its use in online data and information-based activities. Second, paragraphs 1 and 4 and 107 say that we should address and reject Internet fragmentation and call for cooperation, but they do not suggest any particular actions to those ends. Many similar intergovernmental declarations have been made previously without any discernible impact on the incidence of fragmentation and without eliciting any significant international cooperation on the matter. To add weight to our words, why not amend the second sentence of paragraph 107 to say something like, we affirm the need to promote focused and sustained international dialogue among governments and stakeholders in the Internet Governance Forum and other appropriate international venues in order to help identify and mitigate the risk of Internet fragmentation. Third, paragraph 108 says that we will continue to follow the WSIS outcome in relation to enhanced cooperation. As this vague term has already yielded many years of disagreement and deadlock, it's unclear what exactly is being proposed to continue. Why not clarify its contested where, who, and where aspects by amending the sentence to say, enhance cooperation among governments and stakeholders in existing institutions. After all, it is in inclusive settings that cooperation has been most successfully enhanced. In closing, I add my voice to all those who stated that the IGF should have a permanent mandate with regularized funding, and that all WSIS intergovernmental deliberations and decisions should be fully transparent and documented. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, William Drake, for your contributions. I now give the floor to Mona Gabala from the Internet Society, ISOC. Mona, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. The Internet Society supports and promotes the development of the Internet as a global technical infrastructure, a resource to enrich people's lives, and a force for good in society. Our work aligns with our goals for the Internet to be open, globally connected, secure, and trustworthy. We commend co-facilitators for their leadership and openness in engaging all stakeholders in the review process, and would like to encourage greater engagement with non-governmental stakeholders as the negotiations advance, as underscored by Global Partners Digital and other colleagues. The Internet's growth over the past 2 decades has been powered by open, collaborative, and multi-stakeholder approaches. This model is vital if we are to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. We thank the co-facilitators for the Zero Draft, which provides a strong foundation. We are pleased to see the feedback from earlier consultations reflected, including stronger references to the WSIS commitments and multi-stakeholder Internet governance. As others have said, the Internet Governance Forum must become permanent. For 20 years, the Internet Governance Forum has served as the world's primary multi-stakeholder platform for dialogue on Internet governance. What began as a single global meeting has evolved into a dynamic year-round ecosystem supported by over 180 national and regional IGFs and intersessional work. We urge stronger recognition of the role of NRIs advancing multi-stakeholder collaboration in regions and within member states, and a commitment to strengthen the IGF Secretariat to expand these efforts. We emphasize the need to ensure sustainable long-term funding for the IGF to ensure its evolution. Existing IGF funders, such as the Internet Society and other stakeholders, should be a part of any discussion on long-term funding and mandate. We also encourage recognition of important milestones in its evolution, such as the 2024 Net Mundial Statement. It is also important to recognize the practical role of collaborative bottom-up initiatives that have brought the Internet in hard-to-reach areas, helped secure online interactions, and build resilient networks. We must ensure these efforts can continue and grow. Let's ensure the WSIS outcome sets the path forward for meaningful connectivity for everyone, not just those in easy or profitable to connect through traditional models of connectivity. We need to embrace creative solutions and policies that enable complementary connectivity solutions, such as community-centered networks. These local initiatives are effective. They empower unconnected and underserved communities to gain access to government services and education, enhance local and business opportunities, address social challenges, including women and girls, as well as First National and Indigenous communities to design and build networks that meet their needs. The draft needs to more explicitly call out elements that enable those solutions. These include open access to data, proportionate licensing fees, access to financing opportunities, innovative allocation of spectrum, infrastructure sharing models, and community-based approaches. The outcome of the WSIS+20 review is our bridge to the Internet we all envision, one that's open, trusted, and for everyone. I thank you, co-facilitators.
Thank you very much, Mona Gabala, for your contribution. I now give the floor to Fiona Alexander from the American University.
Thank
You
you.
have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide comments in today's sessions. First, I would like to once again thank the co-facilitators and the UN DESA team for going to great lengths to engage all stakeholders and provide a platform for engagement. This has not been the norm for New York-based processes, and these steps are much appreciated. I would encourage this to continue in some fashion as we head into the next stage of discussion. In terms of the Zero Draft itself, I'd like to offer the following 3 observations. First, on Internet governance, the text provided offers a solid basis on which to start a discussion. I was pleased to see the decision text to make the IGF permanent, but I'm concerned that the text could somehow suggest a more limited remit for the IGF than currently exists. With each new technology trend comes new words, whether it's internet, digital, AI, but the IGF and working definition adopted in 2005 is broad enough to have the IGF take up current as well as emerging issues. Something that in fact has already happened over the last 20 years. In that regard, it seems a missed opportunity to not link up the new UN AI governance dialogue with the IGF, and would recommend that point be addressed in the next version. Second, on enhanced cooperation, the Zero Draft seems to rely on the text from the original process, which is fine as a starting point. But it's important to acknowledge that there has been progress in enhanced cooperation over the last 2 decades. In addition to the IANA function stewardship transition, which addressed one of the primary issues on the table at the time, since 2005, we have seen improvements in cooperation both among governments and among stakeholders. There is enhanced cooperation both inside and outside the WSIS processes. And lastly, on the follow-up and implementation, the WSIS+20 review offers yet another opportunity to provide linkages between the SDGs and GDC and anchor them clearly in the pre-existing WSIS framework. Not only does this avoid duplication, a critical consideration in our current era of limited resources, it also allows us to take advantage of existing expert technical agencies, which have the experience on these issues and clear accountability and oversight mechanisms, such as the I2, which has been the long permanent UNGAS Secretariat. and any follow-up should have a meaningful way for stakeholders to engage. If UNGUS is going to get that assignment, as the Zero draft currently suggests, then UNGUS needs to develop some meaningful stakeholder engagement processes. Thank you again for the opportunity to comment, but also for your personal sustained efforts to make the process transparent and accessible.
Thank you, Fiona Alexander, for your kind words and for your contribution. Now I would like to give the floor to Marcus Karma from the IGF Dynamic Coalition Coordination Group. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Marcus Kummer. I'm speaking on behalf of the IGF's Dynamic Coalition Coordination Group. Like other speakers, I would like to commend you, Excellencies, for producing a zero draft that is an excellent basis for the negotiations on the WSIS+20 outcome documents. We are also pleased to note that it proposes to give the IGF a permanent mandate. The zero draft takes note of what was our main concern in our submission to the Elements paper. It recognizes that the IGF is more than just an annual meeting and has evolved into an ecosystem with a wide range of intersessional activities. However, we are disappointed to note that not all the constituent elements of the intersessional work are mentioned by name. We would like to repeat what we wrote in our submission. The dynamic coalitions contribute to the WSIS action lines, the SDGs and the GDC. We feel that this should be reflected in the next iteration of the zero draft. As I was personally closely involved in the shaping of the Tunis agenda and the inception of the IGF, first as head of the Secretariat supporting the Working Group on Internet Governance and later on the IGF Secretariat, I would also like to make a few comments in my personal capacity on how Internet governance is dealt with in the zero draft, and I repeat to some extent what my old WSIS veterans and IGF veterans, Bill and Fiona, said. It seems to repeat a persistent misconception of what is Internet governance as defined and explained by the Tunis agenda. Notably, it seems to reduce the scope of the IGF to a narrow range of issues, mainly related to the more technical components of Internet governance. This is not in accordance with the Tunis agenda, which not only provides a working definition of Internet governance, but also fleshes out its meaning in the relevant chapters. Various paragraphs, 35, 58, 59, make it clear that Internet governance includes public policy issues and issues pertaining to the use of the Internet. It singles out a few issues that have remained pertinent, such as human rights, security, cybercrime, cyberterrorism, and multilingualism. However, this is an open list, also open to include new issues. The IGF, since its inception, has picked up new issues as they emerged, such as social networks, disinformation, privacy and the use of data, IoT, blockchain technology, the environment, AI, or quantum computing. This mirrors the Tunis agenda and its definition, description, and explanation of Internet governance. The zero draft deals with human rights, data governance, and AI as distinct chapters separate from Internet governance. Without any doubt, these are important issues and deserve much space, but they are also an important part of Internet governance. In conclusion, the space given to all these relevant issues should not be construed as an argument to narrow the scope of the IGF agenda. A reiteration of the zero draft should take into account the full Internet governance chapter of the Tunis agenda and make it explicit that the IGF agenda pertains to the full scope of Internet governance as defined and described by the Tunis agenda. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcus Kumar, for your contribution. I would now like to give the floor to Ayman. Ayman, I'm told Ayman may not be with us, so I'll skip. And Ayman, if you're able to rejoin later on, we'll give you the floor. But for now, let me cede the floor to Cedric Workholz from UNESCO. You have the floor.
Thank you, dear co-facilitator. This is Davide. Unfortunately, Cedric was not able to join. Distinguished delegates, UNESCO sincerely thanks the co-facilitators for preparing the zero draft of the WSIS+20 outcome document and commends the efforts for this inclusive process. We welcome the reaffirmation of people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society grounded in the Geneva and Tunis outcomes. We appreciate the emphasis of multi-stakeholder cooperation, human rights, and the integration of the GDC within the WSIS framework. While the Zero Draft does not elaborate on each action line, it provides a broad strategic orientation. Its overarching vision provides guidance on how they could evolve to better support a future-oriented WSIS framework. Allow me to briefly highlight 3 key points. First, UNESCO encouraged the outcome document to reaffirm the freedom of expression and access to information as enshrined in Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a fundamental pillar of information and knowledge societies. Societies where individuals are empowered to engage critically and where technology companies operate with greater transparency and accountability. Second, UNESCO welcomes the attention to gender equality and the recognition of the impact of digital transformation on cultural diversity and the creative sector. On education, UNESCO calls for a more nuanced approach to reflect the complexity of digital transformation on teaching and learning with both potential and risks. The right to quality, inclusive, and equitable education must be reaffirmed. Last and most importantly, to turn ambition into action, implementation must rely on adequate resources and capacities. UNESCO underscores in particular the critical importance for the WSIS+20 review to leverage the existing mandates and programs of the UN system agencies. In this regard, UNESCO reaffirms its commitment as rotating co-chair of the UNGIS, the interagency leadership mechanism for digital policy and program coherence. We support the continued hosting of the UNGIS Secretariat by the ITU. In conclusion, UNESCO reiterates its strong commitment to the WSIS process and the implementation of the Global Digital Compact. We stand ready to continue supporting member states and partners in building inclusive, right-based, and sustainable information and knowledge societies. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much indeed, David Storti from UNESCO. Next, I would like to call upon Vladimir Stankovic from ITU. Vladimir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's me representing ITU. Good evening. ITU thanks the
welcome, Gitanjali. I was under the impression that Vladimir was going to speak in your place.
No problem.
No problem.
Thank you, Ambassador. ITU thanks the WSIS+20 co-facilitators for presenting the Zero Draft and for leading an inclusive and open process. As the UN Specialized Agency for Digital Technologies, ITU has been deeply engaged in the WSIS+20 review with you, responding to the co-facilitators' calls, including organizing multi-stakeholder consultations at the WSIS Forum 2024 and 2025 high-level events. ITU contributed to the Zero Draft by highlighting the existing activities and processes, ensuring that there is no duplication of resources. The written contributions include strengthening critical digital infrastructure through the International Advisory Body for Submarine Cable Resilience, as well as promoting sustainable digital development through GIGA, Child Online Protection, Green Digital Action, and the Digital Infrastructure Investment Catalyzer. Since its inception at the 1998 ITU Plenipotentiary and the 2003 and 2005 WSIS phases, with ITU as the Secretariat, we have remained fully dedicated. Over the past 20 years, ITU has led implementation of all WSIS action lines, facilitating ICT infrastructure, especially capacity building, cybersecurity, and enabling environment. Working with more than 50 UN partners, particularly with UNESCO, UNDP, UNCTAD, ITU has advanced system-wide alignment through annual action line meetings at the WSIS Forum, the leading platform for tracking progress and fostering inclusive digital dialogue. ITU remains committed to expanding the forum's role for even more broader engagement and enhanced policy coherence. Since 2004, ITU has been maintaining the WSIS stock-taking database, which hosts more than 19,000 entries, tracking global progress across WSIS action lines and SDGs. It's now integrated with the Global Digital Compact objectives. A cornerstone of this effort is the WSIS Prize, through which more than 9,000 projects and initiatives have been recognized, showcasing best practices, inspiring innovation, and driving tangible compact. We welcome the recognition of the United Nations Group of the Information Society in the Zero Draft as the permanent secretariat since 2006, and in its rotating chair and vice chair roles, ITU has helped ensure that UNGIS remains active, result-driven, and highly visible, strengthening UN system-wide digital cooperation. As the UNGIS Secretariat, ITU coordinates work streams, facilitates high-level working level meetings, and maintains the UNGIS website in collaboration with our key UN agencies like UNESCO, UNCTAD, and UNDP. Under ITU's leadership, the Working Group on Digital Technologies developed the GDC implementation map based on the WSIS 2030 Agenda GDC matrix by UNGIS. We see the Zero Draft as an encouraging foundation, and we look forward to seeing these highlighted elements reflected and strengthened in the final WSIS+20 outcome document. Thank you, Ambassador Locale and Ambassador Suela. Back to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Gitanjali, Sir from ITU. I now give the floor to Filippo Pierozzi from the UN Office for Digital and Emerging Technologies.
Ambassador
Filippo,
Locale,
you have the floor.
Ambassador Locale, Ambassador Giannina, thank you for hosting the stakeholders consultation. They are a testament to your commitment to an open, transparent, and inclusive process. We'd like to share a couple of general reflections on the Zero Draft, followed by recommendation on the follow-up section based on what we learned in the last year on work on GDC and WSIS alignment that Gitanjali referenced just now. The Zero Draft you circulated is broad and it's ambitious. We welcome the continuity with the spirit and the vision of the with the World Summit on Information Society funding documents and with the 2015 10-year review. Most notably, we appreciate the reaffirmation that effective internet governance must preserve the open, free, global, interoperable, reliable, and secure nature of the internet. Internet governance is and should remain multi-stakeholder in nature. The IGF, as per para 28 of the Global Digital Compact, should be the primary multi-stakeholder platform for discussion of internet governance issues. And we heard from colleagues in the internet governance discussion that there are many current challenges to internet governance. The Zero Draft language makes welcome recommendation for the continuation and strengthening of the IGF. The draft also emphasizes the goal of the WSIS. And the goal of the WSIS is to build a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society, including by bridging digital divides, fostering an enabling environment, and developing capacity and building confidence in ICT. This is crucial. And it's also a reminder that the 20+ year actually, agenda of WSIS is still a work in progress. The adoption of the GDC 1 year ago is a watershed moment. And the WSIS ministerial outcome in December should seek to further complement the leaders' agreement without duplicating what is already agreed and implemented. It can do so and have 3 recommendations. 1, by ensuring that the compact ambition is maintained and the language is not renegotiated. This includes the follow-up section. Initiatives such as the Working Group on Data Governance under the CSTD and the AI panel and dialogue are already underway, and they should continue the trajectories based on plan established by the GDC. Second, it can do so by relying on outputs already produced by the compact. Gitanjali was mentioning, and is mentioned on para 142, the annex to the GDC implementation map developed by the Working Group on Digital Technology that provides a comprehensive overview of the alignment between the GDC, WSIS, and the SDG. Given the headwinds that this organization is experiencing, non-duplication and added value should be key consideration in deciding new undertakings. Finally, the UN system must meet the expectations of member states and of stakeholders. To do so, it must be agile and adaptive. The call to strengthen the efficiency and effectiveness of the UN Group on Information Society at para 141 is a first but necessary step in that direction. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Filippo Moliner. Filippo Pierozzi from UN Audit for your contribution. would now like to give the floor to Helene Molinier from UN Women. Sorry for the mix-up.
No problem, and thank you very much. I would also like to congratulate both of you, the co-facilitator, the team that worked into preparing this very robust zero draft and for leading this inclusive consultation process. 20 years of WSIS implementation have shown that gender equality is not a side issue. It's actually fundamental to realizing the initial vision. And so even though some progress has been made, the gender digital divide persists and it's limiting inclusion, sustainable development for everyone. At UN Women, we really welcome the zero draft recognition and prioritization of this challenge, as well as the call to mainstream gender perspective across all WSIS action lines. At this stage, we must now turn these normative recognitions into tangible results. And so the final text should ensure that we move from principle to practice and that we address the gaps that have hindered progress on gender equality in the past. And to do that, first, we need to ensure that systematic gender mainstreaming across all issues is done in the text so that no area of digital policy remains gender blind. We have made suggestions in our input, building on the language of the GDC of CSW 67. And so it includes options on how to embed gender perspective into national digital strategies and policy, in governance processes in digital ecosystem or the digital economy. Second, we need clear, measurable actions on gender. Not just aspirational language, but what we hope to see is concrete targets aligned with existing frameworks and addressing also gaps in these frameworks, especially around digital public infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and data divides. And third, we need robust accountability and monitoring mechanism to track progress and impact. And on that, three objectives, UN Women is standing ready to support all partners and provide institutional coordination, technical support, also in collaboration with partner of its Action Coalition on Technology Innovation for Gender Equality. We will collaborate in the next couple of weeks to support any stakeholder to ensure we have strong language on women's access, safety, skills, rights, leadership, and that this language is built into all the chapters from the outset and not, as too often is the case, as an afterthought. Finally, we must confront a hard truth, is that women and girls face epidemic levels of digital violence and discrimination. And these are not marginal concerns, these are centrals to determining whether WSIS implementation will be truly inclusive, right-based, and sustainable. And so we have also made recommendations on this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helene Molinier, for your contribution. I would now like to give the floor to Paulo Glowacki from the Youth IGF Germany. You have the floor.
Dear Excellencies, co-facilitators, on behalf of the Youth IGF Germany, the youth-led arm of the German IGF, I want to start out by thanking you for the inclusive and transparent approach taken throughout the WSIS+20 review process. We welcome the opportunity to comment on the zero draft. Before diving into the substantive parts, though, of my statement, I would like to associate ourselves with the positions taken by the Wikimedia Foundation, Global Partners Digital, and the Open Knowledge Foundation. We value their work and support the points made by them. First, general support for the language. The approach taken in the zero draft is a promising one in our view, and we are hopeful that the results will be actionable, forward-looking, and enjoying multi-stakeholder support, which will greatly facilitate the implementation. Second, youth as a stakeholder. We support paragraph 3 and the reaffirmation of the value and principles of multi-stakeholder cooperation and engagement. This paragraph is not just window dressing, but a crucial paragraph for implementation. We would welcome a mention of youth along the other stakeholders. Out of the more than 50 contributors to these consultations, 5 today are expressly youth-led organizations. Recognizing them is not just a matter of recognition, but can once again be a great asset in future-proofing the implementation of the results and making sure that they stay relevant in the future. Third, ensuring a governance structure that matches the structure of the object being regulated. In paragraphs 141 forth following, the zero draft makes good progress towards ensuring that the governance structure established through WSIS stays decentralized, multi-stakeholder, and interoperable. This should be carefully maintained. UN agencies should participate in the implementation based on experience in the subject matter, but also based on their openness to multi-stakeholder approaches. Any attempts by offices or organizations to centralize power, build empires of control, or exclude other agencies or stakeholders must be avoided. Effective coordination is needed, and UNGIS is a very good vehicle to do so. However, coordination does not mean control. We urge potential acceding members to UNGIS to consider its role carefully and engage with the other members in good faith and in constructive dialogue. Should there be any reason for doubt, paragraph 141 needs to be revised to ensure that UNGIS can continue to play the crucial role it is foreseen for. Fourth, the IGF. Paragraphs 115 and following on the IGF's future are very promising, and we hope to see them retained in the following drafts. It is crucial that together with the permanent future of the IGF, a sustainable financing is ensured. Furthermore, the Sao Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines should be incorporated in a future draft to give more content to the phrase that the IGF should, and I quote, enhance its working modalities and to apply innovative, open, inclusive, transparent, and agile collaboration methods. We congratulate you, co-facilitators, on your great work and look forward to staying engaged in this process in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Paulo Bloaki, for your contribution and for the kind words. Now I would like to give the floor to Juan Fernandez from the Ministry of Communications of Cuba.
We appreciate the opportunity to share some of Cuba's criteria regarding the Zero Draft. First and foremost, we note with great concern that the Zero Draft has omitted an issue of the highest priority for Cuba and for many other states, the rejection of the imposition of unilateral coercive measures. In the two phases of the World Summit of the Information Society, the heads of state and government agreed to condemn the imposition of such measures, and this was reflected in the final documents, in paragraph 46 of the Geneva Declaration of Principles and in paragraph 94 of the Tunis Agenda. Each year, from 2008 to the present 2025, similar paragraph has been included in the resolutions adopted by the UN General Assembly on the assessment on the progress made in the implementation of and follow-up of the outcomes of the World Summit of the Information Society. It is therefore surprising and unacceptable the absence of a similar paragraph in the Zero Draft. In addition to being an agreed language on numerous occasions, the issue of collateral coercive measures has even more relevance and connotation today. On the one hand, this is due to the increase of the application of this type of measures, and on the other hand, due to the especially damaging effects of these measures in a global and interconnected environment, such as that of digital technologies. Unilateral coercive measures significantly impede or obstruct the use of important ICT products by the inhabitants of an affected country, as well as access to numerous internet platforms, services, and applications. As a consequence, the legitimate right of the affected countries to use digital technologies as tools for development and to improve the standard of living of their population is limited, thereby violating the human rights of their people. Furthermore, these measures limit or prevent the access by large and small enterprises to financing and technologies that are essential for their operation. Therefore, a document that advocates for respect for the principles of openness, inclusivity, development, and the protection of human rights for all must inevitably include a clear rejection of unilateral coercive measures. Not doing so would destroy the credibility, not only of this document, but of the entire process of implementing the agreements of the World Summit on the Information Society and the Global Digital Compact. I will stop here due to the limit on time for this intervention. In the written submission, we include also two suggestions, one in the financial mechanisms and other in the follow-up framework. And finally, I want to inform you that I was forced to use a video to convey this intervention because Zoom is not available in Cuba. As you can see, this is unilateral coercive measures in work. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan Fernandez, for your video message. Well received. Now I'd like to give the floor to June Paris from ISOC Barbados. June Paris, you have the floor. June Paris, you are muted. Please unmute.
Got it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'll be there in a minute. Sorry to keep you waiting, but I lost my my text for a minute. My name is June Paris, and I participate as a civil society representative at the Internet Governance Forum and in Barbados. My responsibilities involve facilitating connections between local communities and international platforms to incorporate Barbadian civil society viewpoints into global discussions on internet governance. What I want to bring up is the part that civil society should play in the WSIS and the IGF process, because it's a very important aspect of the whole discussion. I will talk a bit about civil society and why I think it's very important. Civil society encompasses organizations, communities, and groups operating independently from government and commercial sectors, aiming to advance public interests. This sector promotes social engagement and enables public participation beyond state and market functions, allowing individuals to join collective initiatives. At the United Nations, civil society and the dynamic coalitions I see are very important to the process. I will now talk about dynamic coalitions. This overview describes the functions of civil society and examines the operation of dynamic coalitions within the United Nations as a focus on the IGF framework. Dynamic coalitions, such as the data-driven health technology and small island development states, engage in IGF activities and local projects. For example, Barbados Civil Society links local and global participants. Within the United Nations, dynamic coalitions foster cross-sector collaboration among academia, private enterprise, governments, and additional partners. Members, including those from small island development states, take part in reporting, IGF presentations, and national initiatives. The Data-Driven Health Technology Coalition covers areas such as data privacy, patient rights, and artificial intelligence in healthcare, involving stakeholders from the medical, academic, and research sectors. Dynamic coalitions support information exchange and documentation in fields like environmental protection and health. They facilitate cooperation amongst technical professionals, policymakers, grassroots actors, contributing to policy papers and strategic plans. Barbados Civil Society participates in matters related to environmental protection, entrepreneurship, and policy development. These organizations identify issues, draft recommendations, and engage stakeholders, connecting technical experts, governments, and civil society representatives. Overall, civil society, including dynamic coalitions, participate at the IGF, and it should participate in the IGF processes. They should have a seat at the table. Through sectorial collaboration, community involvement, and assistance with policy and document creation, civil society supports the progression of internet governance. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, June Paris, for your contribution. And now I would like to give the floor to Paula Otegay from Latin American and Caribbean Internet Addresses Registry. Paula, you have the floor.
Thank you, ambassadors. I'm speaking on behalf of LACNIC, the Latin American and Caribbean Internet Address Registry. LACNIC appreciates the opportunity to contribute to the WSIS+20 review process and welcomes the effort reflected in the WSIS+20 Zero Draft, published by the UN WSIS+20 co-facilitators and the Secretariat. The draft reaffirms key pillars such as multi-stakeholder governance, digital inclusion, trust in the digital ecosystem, and the recognition of the Internet as global infrastructure. We are particularly pleased to see the explicit recognition of the technical community as key actor in the evolution of Internet. We also welcome the reaffirmation of the multi-stakeholder governance model and the consolidation of the Internet Governance Forum as a permanent platform for dialogue with meaningful impact both globally and locally through national and regional initiatives. This approach is very much aligned with LACNIC's work in Latin America and the Caribbean, where we actively support capacity building and leadership development with an ARISE and regional forum. In this context, we believe it is crucial to emphasize that we understand the Internet not merely as a layer of services or applications, but fundamentally as an open, interoperable, resilient, and secure infrastructure. This perspective is essential to fully recognizing the Internet's value as a foundation for inclusive development and driver of long-term social and economic growth. We also strongly support the inclusion of actions aimed at strengthening digital skills, enhancing international cooperation in cybersecurity, and promoting global technical collaboration. At LACNIC, we contribute to these efforts through a variety of programs and capacity building activities with governments and law enforcement agencies, as well as initiatives that promote the adoption of technical standards like IPv6, RPKI across the region. Finally, we underscore the importance of fostering effective synergies among WSIS, integrating the Global Digital Compact, avoiding duplications, and ensuring inclusive and effective process with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and related initiatives. At LACNIC, we reaffirm our commitment to an open, secure, and stable Internet centered on people and based on regional and global cooperation. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ola Otegai, for your contribution. I would now like to give the floor to Luis Kakzeski from the Data Privacy Brazil. Luis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. Dear Excellencies and colleagues, thank you for this opportunity. Today I represent Data Privacy Brazil, which is a civil society organization that is part of the Global South Alliance, the Global Digital Justice Forum, and the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS. We commend the co-facilitators for a comprehensive zero draft addressing many civil society concerns. We also highlight, as colleagues before, the need to maintain provisions on the IGF's permanent mandate and funding, the GDC's integration to the WSIS framework, and the strengthened human rights language and the role of the OHCHR, while calling for greater operational clarity. Now I would like to use my few minutes to draw attention to the topic of data governance. First, we welcome the distinction between privacy and data protection throughout the draft, but we also take note that the section on data governance was notably short and unspecific in comparison with the elements paper. This contrasts with the section on AI, which is a topic that relies very much on data as other topics on the document. Data governance, as we understand it, is not resumed to technical aspects. It refers to a set of structures, strategic, regulatory, and dialogic elements that connect local and global levels to fully realize human and social development capacities. Therefore, we call for stronger recognition of data governance in the WSIS review, aligning with the GDC and the UN resolutions on privacy and trustworthy AI. This includes ensuring that developing countries, marginalized groups, and indigenous peoples have real decision-making power over data affecting them, with respect for the acknowledged systems, informed consent, and legal privacy protections. At the same time, open and inclusive data initiatives created and managed by all stakeholders should be enabled so that data can be utilized for development, well-being, and the monitoring of public policies, SDGs, and crisis response. Finally, Initiatives like the CSTD's Working Group on Data Governance are positive steps, but broader coherence and social goals are needed across data regulations, especially amid tensions between AI governance, data protection, and trade agreements. The concentration of information and power among a few private actors deepens power asymmetries. Therefore, we endorse the call from colleagues on the recognition of the São Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines agreed upon at Mundial +10, underscoring the need for stronger coordination between multilateral and multi-stakeholder efforts. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Luis, for your contributions. I would now like to give the floor to Ismail Alamidi from Contemporary Consulting Limited. Ismail Alamidi, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, and good day. My name is Ismail Alamidi. I'm a lead AI consultant at Contemporary Consulting Limited. We are a corporate member of African ICT Alliance, that is AFICTA. I would like to thank the organizers of this consultation for the opportunity to submit our responses to the Zero Draft. I wish to join others to thank the two co-facilitators. I'm talking about Our Excellency, Ambassador Suela Janina of Albania, and also Ambassador Ekitale Lukali of Kenya for their unwavering, please pardon me for the name, for their unwavering commitment to this task, and the Informal multi-stakeholder sounding board for their support team role to the World Summit on Information Society +20 review process. I have noted the high-level consideration AI as a new phenomenon outside the WSIS action line. As a matter of science, AI is an application under the action line C7, ramification for data management, data protection, data governance, and ethics. As a digital policy, AI governance could well fit into the Internet Governance Forum, which is based on paragraph 72 of the Tunis Agenda, which covers the broader issue of digital governance. I would like to note paragraph 10 mention of the phrase right to development, and to therefore underscore the imperative need for annual measurement and review of the action line and targets in response to this right. We support the view that there should be WSIS and Global Compact GDC annual review at the country level. This will be necessary for effective follow-up and monitoring progress of implementation of the WSIS action line and targets and the GDC towards the 2030 goals. Finally, we support paragraph 115 of the Zero Draft, posing that the IGF be made a permanent feature of the United Nations, and this is effected. It is our expectation that the IGF can be preeminent forum to discuss broader digital governance issues. We see the internet as encompassing the digital. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ismaila Lamidi from Contemporary Consulting Limited. Now I'd like to give the floor to Marine Mohammed Ashraf from the Global Digital Justice Forum. You have the floor.
Thank you, co-facilitators. My name is Merin, and I speak on behalf of the Global Digital Justice Forum, a coalition of civil society organizations that advocate global justice principles for the digital. The Global Digital Justice Forum urges the WSIS+20 review to factor in the following priorities to ensure that the dividends of the data and AI revolution are equitably distributed, and to pave the way for a digital governance paradigm that moves beyond a narrow stakeholderism to meaningful democratic engagement, prioritizing the voices of the peoples of the majority world. Our first recommendation is on the financing mechanism. We recommend that the WSIS+20 outcome document commit to setting up a global task force on financing for inclusive digital transformation with representation from member states and experts in public finance and fiscal justice in order to explore a mechanism for raising solidarity levies to support digital data and AI infrastructure development in developing countries and LDCs.
The task force can take a leaf out of initiatives such as the Global Solidarity Levies Task Force for People and the Planet and enable coordinated action by member states. Further, as the UN Secretary General in our common agenda recommended, that transnational companies that have benefited from a free and open internet for decades should contribute towards infrastructure development in developing countries. Second, on data governance, we recommend that the WSIS+20 outcome document should affirm mutuality, solidarity, and the sovereign equality of all states as the foundational norms for international data governance. That is, data governance approaches which prioritize mutual benefit and solidarity for people across geography and generations. We also urge that the text on the work of the CSTD working group reflect the language used in paragraph 48 of GDC. Third, on the development of WSIS framework, we recommend that in multi-stakeholder digital governance arrangements, the respective roles and responsibilities of stakeholders should be defined in an issue-specific manner to ensure outcome legitimacy and be rooted in principles of democracy and public interest. The principle of sovereign equality of all states in the Geneva Declaration of Principles and the acknowledgement in the Tunis Agenda that all governments should have an equal role and responsibility for international internet governance must guide future implementation of the WSIS framework. Finally, we urge the inclusion of a dedicated action line on gender equality, the establishment of gender-specific indicators and targets, mandatory gender impact assessments, increased representation for women, gender budgeting, and systemic measures for tackling technology-facilitated gender-based violence. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Marine, Mohammed Ashraf, for your contribution. Now I'd like to give the floor to Ihita Gangavarapu from the Youth IGF India. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. My name is Ahita Gangavarapu, and I'm the coordinator of Youth IGF India. We are a platform recognized by the United Nations IGF, and for the past 8 years, we've been empowering and engaging youth in internet governance space to make meaningful contributions to national and global policy processes, as well as to inform technology development. We appreciate the Zero Draft's comprehensive approach to shaping a people-centered and inclusive information society. On building confidence and security in the use of ICTs, paragraphs 62 to 65, the text rightly recognizes this as a crucial driver for innovation and sustainable development. It commends multi-stakeholder efforts to protect infrastructure and digital activity, highlights the urgency of addressing online harms such as cyber attacks, disinformation, and gender-based violence, and stresses the importance of capacity building. What is missing, however, are 3 critical elements. First, an explicit commitment to security by design and global interoperable standards developed in open and transparent processes as the foundation of confidence and security. Second, a stronger emphasis on digital literacy and resilience building so that users are empowered to navigate risk and not only protected through redress. And third, capacity building must go beyond strengthening institutions like the CERTs and CSIRTS to also empower the very people most impacted, particularly young people. Youth are the largest group of ICT users, often the most exposed to online risk, but also among the most willing to innovate, educate peers, and lead secure adoption of technologies. Their perspectives on usability, accessibility, and resilience must be structurally included in training, standards making, and the broader trust building efforts. Turning to internet governance, paras 105 to 115, the draft rightly reaffirms the multi-stakeholder model, commends the Internet Governance Forum, and welcomes the emergence of more than 170 national and regional initiatives as part of the IGF ecosystem. We especially welcome and support the decision to make the IGF a permanent forum of the United Nations. What is missing is the explicit recognition of youth IGFs. Across the world, youth IGFs have consistently produced policy recommendations, built local capacity, and fostered intergenerational dialogue. They are a proven part of the NRI ecosystem, yet their absence from this draft weakens the very multi-stakeholder commitment the text seeks to uphold. To strengthen legitimacy and inclusion, youth IGFs must be formally recognized and supported with mentorship, fellowship, funding, and structured pathways into decision-making. We also recommend that the outcome explicitly recognizes that young people are not a homogeneous group, but represent diverse social, cultural, economic, and regional realities. The digital inclusion strategies must therefore reflect these diversities, ensuring that youth participation and empowerment are accessible to all young people, regardless of background. Thank you very much, and I appreciate all stakeholders coming together to share their inputs.
Thank you very much, Ihita Gangavarapu from Youth IGF India for your contribution. Next, I would like to give the floor to Marcel Dosch from the Coalition for Digital Environmental Sustainability and German Environment Agency. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair, fellow stakeholders. The Coalition for Digital Environmental Sustainability, CODES, is a multi-stakeholder alliance co-championed by Future Earth, the German Environment Agency, Kenyan partners, the International Science Council, ITU, UNEP, and UNDP. For over 4 years now, CODES brings together governments, international organizations, civil society, academia, and the private sector to align digital transformation with sustainable development for our planet and its people. Over the past 2 years, CODES has actively contributed to the WSIS+20 review process through expert workshops and consultations, consistently advocating for a stronger integration of environmental and sustainability perspectives in the process. We commend the drafters for taking a significant step forward by integrating environmental and sustainability considerations more strongly throughout the text, especially, of course, in the chapter on environmental impacts, paragraphs 49 to 54. This marks real progress compared to previous WSIS documents and reflects a growing global understanding that is also found in the Global Digital Compact that digital and sustainability agendas are inseparable. At the same time, we see opportunities to further strengthen this dimension, in particular 4 points. First, mainstreaming environmental sustainability across all WSIS action lines and review dimensions, rather than only confining it to a single action line subset or thematic silos or a chapter alone. Environmental sustainability considerations should cut across digital infrastructure, access dimensions, capacity building, and of course enabling environments, including financial investments and mechanisms we introduce. Second, keep and strengthen clear language on the environmental footprint of digital technologies, including AI, across the entire digital life cycle, from minerals, energy use to e-waste, including the need for transparent and coherent assessment indicators. This is important. Local effectiveness safeguards and global strategies to allow for a sustainable universal connectivity for all. Third, include language on the opportunities of digital public infrastructure, open data, and digital commons to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs as well as other environmental agreements, including the Paris Climate Agreement, in a way that is inclusive and equitable. Fourth and finally, include follow-up mechanisms so that sustainability is really integrated as a systemic category into future WSIS architecture, follow-up and review mechanisms, including monitoring and reporting structures that are really a relevant fit for other existing and emerging global mechanisms, especially the high-level political forum on the 2030 agenda and the Global Digital Compact, of course. CODES and its partners stand ready to support advancing these priorities through evidence partnerships and concrete initiatives. By mainstreaming sustainability throughout the framework, we can ensure that digital transformation contributes meaningfully to a thriving, just, and sustainable future for our planet and its people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your contribution. That was the last speaker on our pre-established list of speakers. However, there is one participant who has raised their hands, and that is Abide Tunsa. I hope I have pronounced that correctly, from Habitat Association. You have the floor.
He's joining as a panelist shortly.
And if there are any other participants that would like to, I know we are really pressed for time. If there are any others, just raise your hand and then we will consider your request to the extent that time will allow. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for these opportunities today. I really appreciate it, and I really actually excited to say something about this draft today. So I am Abide from Turkey, from Habitat Association. Also, previous report we had been some recommendation before. So for this draft, first we emphasize digital safety and inclusion for older adults. Digital risks affect different groups differently. Elderly individuals should be supported with targeted digital literacy and intergenerational learning programs that promote inclusion and mutual learning between generations. And second, we draw attention to psychological dimensions of digitalization. The widening digital gap between parents and children contributes to identity confusion and online violence. Thus, we recommend integrating digital identity awareness and guidance programs for all countries, or maybe we can add here this point or maybe the paragraph. And third, we underline social resilience in times of crisis. In an era defined by uncertainty, digital infrastructures should serve not only as channels for information, but also as tools for solidarity, coordination, and psychological support. With this recommendation, we envision a digital future that is inclusive, sustainable, and ethically grounded, a transformation that leaves no one behind. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Abide, for your contribution. Dear colleagues, I think that was the last speaker of the day. I want to be sure that we are leaving no one behind, so to speak. And if there's no other request for the floor, I would like to thank you very much. And at this point, invite my colleague, Ambassador Yanina, to make some closing remarks. Ambassador.
Thank you, Ambassador Lokale. Indeed, I will be short because it has been a very rich session this morning. And first of all, I would like to thank all participants for their thoughtful engagement in this second day of consultation. Your inputs today, alongside those received yesterday and through the written submission that we have received, will guide the revision of the zero draft from our side as co-facilitators. We appreciate your constructive spirit and continued commitment to this process, and we are looking forward to continue this very close cooperation with you. Thank you again. Ambassador Lokale, back to you.
Thank you, Ambassador Yanina. Let me also express my appreciation to all the speakers and participants for their contribution and cooperation. Your engagement ensures that the WSIS+20 outcome reflects the diversity of perspectives and experiences across all stakeholder groups and all regions of the world. On our part as co-facilitators, we look forward to our continued collaboration as the process advances. And it's always a pleasure to see everyone and to listen to your very, very useful and substantive inputs into the various drafts. I think before we conclude, let me invite the Secretariat. Denise, if there's any announcement that you'd like to make to our dear colleagues about the preparatory meeting tomorrow, you have a minute to do that before we close. Denise?
Yes, thank you, Ambassador. We have put the link to the meeting of tomorrow to the chat. So colleagues who want to follow that second prep meeting of the member states can follow through the UN Web TV. And we have also put a link to side events for the high-level meeting. So interested organizations can also apply for side events. There is nothing else from Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. As always, on my behalf and on behalf of Ambassador Yanina, to thank you, the Secretariat, for the incredible work that you continue to do. At this stage, dear colleagues, friends, I would like to close this meeting and to thank everyone for your company and participation. Thank you. Have a good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. Goodbye from New York.